For centuries, mankind believed that every word of God had already been revealed, that every scripture had been read and every truth recorded. But they were wrong. Some words were hidden, buried deep beneath the deserts, sealed within forbidden mountains, guarded by time and silence itself. When those ancient caves were opened, people discovered scrolls humanity was never meant to see. Words that spoke of angels who fell, of giants who ruled before the great flood, and of divine laws erased from the pages of history. These were the banned scriptures. For generations, kings, priests, and empires tried to destroy them, yet heaven never allowed the truth to disappear. Tonight, you and I will return to those sacred places, to the most forbidden sites on earth. Along the way, we'll also uncover many other places mankind is forbidden to enter. Like a monastery in Tibet said to guard a hidden gateway to another world beyond our own. Or the abandoned prisons where time itself seems to stand still. And the haunted forests where those who enter are never seen again. All of them are real, documented, marked clearly upon the map. But why are they forbidden? What secret are they hiding from the world? Tonight, Sleep Codex will unveil it all. And now, close your eyes. The world you thought you knew is about to reveal its oldest secret. The Qumran Caves, where the first banned scriptures were discovered. To the west of the Dead Sea, amid the dry Judean desert, lies the barren ridge of Qumran, silent, sun-bleached, and lifeless. There is nothing there but sandstone and wind. Yet this desolate place, forgotten by time, would one day reveal a secret capable of reshaping the entire history of religion. In 1947, a young Bedouin shepherd was searching for a lost goat among the cliffs. He threw a stone into a narrow crevice and heard a hollow clang, a sound echoing as if from within the earth itself. Curious, he climbed closer and discovered a small cave hidden in the white limestone walls. Inside were tall clay jars sealed and covered in centuries of dust. When he opened the first jar, the desert air swirled, and within it were bundles of ancient parchment, rolled tightly, yellowed by age, as though protecting a secret buried for thousands of years. Across the rough surface were handwritten letters in ancient Hebrew. No one could have guessed that this shepherd's accidental discovery would make the world question everything it thought it knew about the Bible. Those parchments would later be called the Dead Sea Scrolls. More than 900 manuscripts were eventually uncovered in 11 caves scattered across the cliffs of Qumran. Most were copies of the Hebrew scriptures, yet among them were writings that had never appeared in any official Bible. They were the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Giants, 3 ancient texts banned for millennia. When read together, they formed a single continuous story, as if each were a chapter in one great tragedy, the fall of the angels, the birth of the Nephilim, and the great flood that cleansed the world. In the Book of Enoch, the patriarch, Enoch the seventh from Adam, tells of being taken up by God to behold a sin that mankind had never known. He was shown how the watchers, the angels, appointed to guard the earth, abandoned their sacred posts. They saw the daughters of men and were overcome with desire. Defying heaven's law, they descended to earth, took wives from among humans, and committed the greatest transgression of the divine realm. From these forbidden unions came a new race, the Nephilim, beings half human and half divine. They possessed enormous strength and wisdom, but their hearts were proud and cruel. They ruled the earth with violence, devoured mankind, and plunged creation into chaos. As sin multiplied, the Lord grew angry. He sent his archangels to punish the rebels and unleash the great flood to wash away every trace of corruption. Yet the Book of Enoch was only the beginning. In the Book of Jubilees, the story expands, revealing why the world had fallen so deeply into ruin. The fallen angels were guilty not only of lust, but of granting humanity forbidden knowledge, wisdom that belonged only to heaven and was never meant for mortals. They taught men how to forge metal and craft weapons. They taught women the arts of adornment, how to paint their faces, use jewels and dyes, and awaken vanity. They taught sorcerers how to read the stars, to summon spirits, and to predict fate. Through this knowledge, humanity grew arrogant, believing they could control nature, rewrite destiny, and stand equal with the divine. And so mankind began to forget God, the true source of all truth. But the corruption did not end there. The Book of Giants, the third of these banned scriptures, tells the story from the other side, from the Nephilim themselves, the children of heaven and earth. They dreamed terrible dreams, the ground trembling beneath them, waters rising and fire pouring down from heaven. They understood the meaning the day of judgment was near. No matter how powerful they were, they could not escape the wrath of God. When the three books are placed together, they form a seamless picture of the world before the flood, a time when even the angels fell and mankind lost its connection to the Creator. Perhaps it was because these stories were too vivid, too direct, that they were labeled dangerous and removed from the official Bible. Not because they were false, but because they exposed the true nature of rebellion, showing that even the highest angels could fall and be cast down into eternal punishment. And the same warning applies to humanity itself. For if mankind chooses to believe only in evolution and denies that it was created by divine hands, then it too turns away from heaven, and without the protection of the Lord, the path to damnation is not far behind. The Ethiopian highlands, where the world's most complete Bible was preserved. After the discovery of the scrolls at Qumran, scholars soon realized something astonishing. The so-called banned books, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, had not disappeared from the world. They still existed perfectly preserved high in the mountains of Ethiopia, thousands of miles away from Israel. Unlike the barren desert of Judea, the Ethiopian highlands are green and alive villages scattered across cliffs and ancient stone monasteries carved directly into the mountain rock. This land is often called the roof of Africa. But for the faithful, it is far more than that. It is the dwelling place of God's memory. Ethiopia was among the very first nations on earth to embrace Christianity. In the 4th century, during the reign of King Ezana of the Aksumite Empire, Christianity became the state religion long before Rome itself converted. From that moment, Ethiopia became a sanctuary for what was sacred, untouched by the politics and reformations that would reshape the Bible in the West. While empires in Europe and the Middle East edited, shortened, and removed entire books from Scripture, the Ethiopian monks continued to copy every word by hand using ink made from soot and plants, and praying over each page before it was bound and stored deep within the mountains. Through this devotion, the Ethiopian Bible, known as the Ge'ez Bible, remains the most complete version of the Holy Scriptures in existence. It contains 81 books, far more than the 66 of the Protestant Bible or the 73 of the Catholic canon. Within it are the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Baruch, the Book of Tobit, the Book of Maccabees, and many other writings long rejected or forgotten by the rest of the world. In Ethiopia, these texts were never considered dangerous. They were not forbidden, but sacred messages from God, meant to remind humanity of His justice and His mercy. High in the mountains, monasteries such as Debre Damo and Lalibela stand like citadels of faith. To reach them, one must climb leather ropes up sheer cliffs. Inside their stone walls, the air is cool and silent. There, the monks still guard ancient manuscripts written on goatskin wrapped in red leather, prayed over for more than 1,000 years. Among them lies the oldest surviving Ge'ez copy of the Book of Enoch, the only complete version on Earth. When Western scholars first saw it, they were stunned. The texts discovered in the caves of Qumran, Enoch, Jubilees, and Giants had been preserved all along in Ethiopia's Bible word for word. It was as if God had hidden his truth in two halves of the world, one beneath the sands of Qumran, the other among the clouds of Ethiopia, waiting for humanity to uncover both and see the full picture of his revelation. Even today, Ethiopian monks live in seclusion, without electricity, without wealth, and without fear. Their mission is simple: to keep God's word untouched. For them, every page is holy because it has survived fire war and the forgetfulness of mankind. While kingdoms rose and fell, and empires twisted scripture to serve their own desires, Ethiopia kept the original flame burning quietly, faithfully, as though the mountains themselves were guarding the last unbroken memory of heaven. To the believers who make the pilgrimage there, Ethiopia is not just a country. It is a treasure of faith, the one place on earth where the words once banned by men are still read, still prayed, and still honored every single day. Vatican, where the banned scriptures remain hidden to this day. While in Ethiopia, the ancient scriptures are still read daily in mountain monasteries and treated as sacred treasures of faith in Europe, there exists another place that also holds countless ancient texts, but has chosen to keep them sealed for centuries. In the very heart of Vatican City lies a building few have ever entered: the Vatican Apostolic Archives. It is an immense underground complex with corridors stretching over 80 kilometers, containing millions of documents and manuscripts. Some of these records date back to the 8th century, preserved in carefully controlled conditions to withstand the passage of time. Officially, the Vatican describes it as an administrative archive, a repository of papal correspondence, decrees, church records, and historical documents of the Catholic Church. But there is more to it than that. Within its walls are letters exchanged between popes and kings, diplomatic records from the Reformation era, and even original letters written by the artist Michelangelo to Pope Julius II. The archive is completely closed to the public. Only selected researchers, after years of application and approval, may enter, and even then, they are allowed to view only a limited number of pages under strict supervision. The Vatican states that this is necessary to preserve fragile materials and ensure scholarly accuracy. Yet many historians believe the archives also contain banned religious texts, books once removed from the official Bible during the church councils of the 4th century. Some scholars claim that the original Latin and Greek manuscripts of the Book of Enoch, Book of Jubilees, and Book of Giants may still rest in these vaults alongside other apocryphal works such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and the Gospel of Judas. Writings that tell the story of Jesus from perspectives the world has never seen. These books are not legends. They were written during the same period as the New Testament, but were excluded from the Bible during the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, when the Church decided which texts were to be canonized and which were not. Some writings, like the Gospel of Thomas, were considered too unconventional, recording words of Jesus, such as, "The kingdom of God is within you." A beautiful truth, but one that, if misunderstood, could lead people to believe they no longer needed the guidance of the Church to reach God. Likewise, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees speak openly about the fall of the angels, the origin of sin, and events that occurred before the Great Flood, subjects only briefly mentioned in the modern Bible. For that reason, the Vatican chose to safeguard these texts rather than destroy them, allowing only limited access for scholars to study them under supervision. Today, those granted permission to enter must follow a lengthy and highly controlled process. Every document viewed is recorded, and every minute spent inside is monitored. The Vatican maintains that this is done to protect history itself, but to many, it is also a sign that certain truths about faith remain locked away from the world. Unlike Ethiopia, where monks believe every word of God should be shared with humanity, the Vatican believes that some knowledge must be preserved and guarded carefully. These are two different paths, but both arise from the same devotion, the desire to protect what is sacred. Perhaps that is what God intended, that humankind should not only believe, but also learn to seek to question and to yearn for a deeper understanding of divine truth. The lost libraries of Babylon and Alexandria, where books were burned for revealing the truth. From the mountains of Ethiopia to the underground vaults of the Vatican, the history of humanity has always been divided between those who preserve sacred knowledge and those who try to conceal it. But long before the Bible was ever compiled into a single book, there were two great cities that dared to gather every trace of wisdom about heaven and earth. And for that, they were destroyed. One of them was Babylon, the heart of the ancient world, where priests, astronomers, and scribes gathered to study the skies. The other was Alexandria, a shining city on the shores of the Mediterranean, whose thousands of scrolls were said to hold the very secrets of creation. In Babylon, knowledge was considered divine power. The ziggurats and temples that towered above the city were not only places of worship, but also observatories and archives. Scholars there recorded the movements of the stars and planets, the cycles of the moon, and the patterns of the heavens, believing that by understanding the cosmos, they could better understand the will of God. But when the empires of Babylon fell, their libraries fell with them. Many ancient writings were destroyed or confiscated, accused of containing forbidden knowledge ideas that blurred the boundary between science and the divine. Some accounts say those lost texts describe the Great Flood, the fall of the angels, and the ancient language that vanished after the Tower of Babel collapsed. Over thousands of years, only fragments survived, and their true meaning remains hidden from mankind. Far to the west, in Alexandria, Egypt, another vision of divine knowledge was taking shape. The Library of Alexandria, built in the 3rd century BC under King Ptolemy I, became the greatest center of learning in the ancient world. It was said to hold hundreds of thousands of scrolls, maps of the heavens, ancient prophecies and manuscripts from Greece, Persia, India, and even Jerusalem. It was the first place in history where knowledge itself was treated as sacred, belonging to no single nation or faith. Within its walls, scholars studied the origins of language, the age of the earth, and the mysteries of the soul. But as in every age, when knowledge begins to challenge power, destruction follows. The Library of Alexandria soon became a threat to those who sought control through faith or politics. Its scrolls contained questions that rulers did not want asked, and truths that doctrines could not explain. Then came the fire. Through centuries of wars, invasions, and shifting empires, the library was burned again and again, until nothing remained but ash. Many believed that among its scrolls were records of the flood of the fallen angels and of civilizations that existed before recorded history. Others held studies on medicine, astronomy, and the structure of the universe, knowledge that could have advanced humankind by centuries. Yet, one by one, those writings were destroyed, not because they were false, but because they revealed too much. Today, historians still debate what was truly lost. But for those who believe the story of Babylon and Alexandria is more than the fall of two ancient cities, it is a warning to all generations. For every time power and truth collide, it is always the truth that burns first. Perhaps that is why God allowed the words of Enoch, Jubilees, and the ancient prophets to be scattered across the earth, some buried beneath the sands of Qumran, others preserved in the mountains of Ethiopia, so that when humanity is finally ready, it may piece them together once again and see the whole truth that heaven once entrusted to this world. Mount Sinai, the holy mountain where God gave the 10 Commandments. After the libraries of Babylon and Alexandria were destroyed by fire, there remained one place where knowledge was not preserved through books, but through faith. A barren mountain rising from the desert, yet believed by millions to be the very place where God once spoke directly to humankind. This is Mount Sinai, the sacred mountain on the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, the very site where the Bible records that God appeared to Moses and gave him the Ten Commandments. It was here amid thunder, smoke, and divine fire that Moses climbed to meet the Lord. And from that encounter, the first laws of heaven were carved into 2 stone tablets, forming the moral foundation of both Christianity and Judaism. For thousands of years, Mount Sinai has been a destination of pilgrimage for those seeking to reconnect with God. At its base, nestled among red-brown cliffs, stands St. Catherine's Monastery, built in the 6th century by order of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian. The monastery is isolated from the outside world, surrounded by massive stone walls, a fortress of faith in the heart of the desert. Today, St. Catherine's is recognized by UNESCO as one of the oldest and most valuable religious libraries on Earth. Inside, Greek Orthodox monks continue to safeguard thousands of ancient manuscripts, including the Codex Sinaiticus, one of the oldest and most complete Bibles in existence, written in Greek in the 4th century. This manuscript contains most of the Old and New Testaments, including passages that were later omitted from modern versions of the Bible. Many scholars believe that St. Catherine's was not only home to the Codex Sinaiticus, but also once protected other sacred texts that were removed from the canon during the Roman era, writings the early church deemed too different. The monks, it is said, secretly copied and hid them within the monastery's archives to preserve the words once written under the light of God's inspiration. Through centuries of war invasion and desert storms, the monastery has endured for over 1,500 years. The monks live in humility, devoting their lives to prayer and to the preservation of each fragile page as a sacred duty. Even as time has changed the world beyond its walls, their ancient rituals remain the same. Hymns in Old Greek still echo through the stone halls as though the voices themselves were retelling the meeting between Moses and the Almighty atop the mountain. Today, pilgrims from around the world still travel to Mount Sinai. They climb thousands of steps through the night, torches in hand, waiting for dawn to break over the peaks. When the sun rises, its golden light floods the cliffs, and in that silent moment, many say they can feel the voice of God moving through the wind. It is said that at St. Catherine's, God no longer speaks through thunder or flame as he did to Moses, but through stillness, through the wind that sweeps across the desert, through the yellowed pages of the old manuscripts, and through the quiet faith of those who continue to guard this holy place. For even after thousands of years, Mount Sinai remains the one place on earth where mankind can still feel the greatest truth of all. The presence of God has never left this world. From Qumran to Ethiopia, from the vaults of the Vatican to the peaks of Mount Sinai, we have traveled through places where the Word of God was once written, read, and later hidden away. These mountains, caves, and ancient libraries told the story of faith, of how humankind has tried to preserve, interpret, and sometimes control divine knowledge. But when the last page of Scripture closes, another question quietly opens. Could the forbidden places that exist in our world today still carry traces of the divine, not through holy words, but through the very boundaries that nature itself has set? If in the Bible God once closed the gates of Eden and placed angels to guard the way so that no human could return, then perhaps in our world there are still lands that remain sealed not by doctrine, but by creation itself. Islands overrun with venomous life, mountains that no one can climb, seas that swallow entire ships, and deserts that hide what eyes were never meant to see. Maybe the border between the sacred and the earthly never disappeared. It simply moved, buried in islands locked away from mankind, in jungles where time no longer moves, and in places where science dares not step. From here, our journey enters a new chapter. No longer among banned scriptures, but into the lands that the Creator himself forbade mankind to touch, places that seem to belong to the earth, yet feel as though they were made for another world entirely. Close your eyes. The path ahead is not one of religion, but of wonder and limits, where faith, fear, and curiosity intertwine, and where every forbidden step brings us closer to the mystery of creation itself. Ilha da Queimada Grande, the island where no one can set foot. Just off the coast of southeastern Brazil, there lies an island that no tourist will ever visit. Not because it's unknown, but because this island has been officially declared too dangerous for human presence. No one is allowed to live there. No one is allowed to enter. The locals call it Ilha da Queimada Grande, but the world knows it by a more chilling name, Snake Island. At first glance, it's easy to be deceived. The island looks beautiful, a patch of green floating in the Atlantic, with waves lapping softly against the rocks and seagulls wheeling through open skies. But no one anchors near its shores, because beneath the trees hiding among the leaves and rocks is a silent army of venomous predators. Ilha da Queimada Grande is home to thousands of golden lancehead vipers, a species so rare and deadly it exists only on this island. Their venom is unlike that of any other snake in Brazil. It's up to 5 times more potent than that of their closest relatives. A single bite can melt skin, shut down organs, and lead to death in under an hour. And there is no medical help. There is no hospital nearby. Only forest fangs and silence. No one truly knows how many snakes live there. Some say 1 for every square meter. Others say the trees themselves seem to breathe with serpents. But one thing is certain, this island was never meant for humans. Long ago, Ilha da Queimada Grande was connected to the mainland. When sea levels rose, the vipers were trapped, cut off from the outside world. Over centuries without predators, they evolved into something far more lethal. They learned to hunt birds fast, clever, and alert. So their venom became faster, deadlier, more efficient. Not for defense, but for the kill. Today, even scientists need government approval and military escort just to set foot on the island. Visitors must wear thick boots, protective gear, and carry anti-venom at all times. And still, most researchers choose to study from a distance, because once you step off the boat, every rustle could mean death. The Brazilian Navy patrols the waters to make sure no one lands there by mistake. The lighthouse that once stood on the island was abandoned long ago. There are stories whispered among fishermen of the last family who lived there. They say the keeper's young son was bitten and died before help could arrive. But perhaps the most unsettling mystery of all is why some pharmaceutical companies fight for access to the island. What exactly are they hoping to find in the venom? What kind of cure or weapon might be hidden in this forbidden ecosystem? No one speaks about it publicly, and no one stays long enough to ask questions, so Snake Island remains alone, untouched. A floating fortress of silence and death, where the trees remember a time before humans, and the ground itself seems to whisper, "You are not welcome here." Let your eyes grow heavy now. Let the danger drift away like mist across the sea. We've left the island far behind, and there are many more secrets waiting. But for now, just breathe and rest. North Sentinel Island, a forbidden land guarded by a mysterious tribe. There is a tiny island in the Bay of Bengal, surrounded by turquoise waters and soft waves lying just west of the Andaman archipelago. From above, it looks like paradise, a thick jungle, nestled inside a ring of golden sand, untouched by roads, buildings, or lights. But behind that beauty lies something no modern map can explain. A force so primal and determined that even in the age of satellites and global travel, this island remains a mystery. No one has ever set foot here and lived to tell the tale, because this is North Sentinel Island, and those who try to visit are not welcomed. For thousands of years, the Sentinelese people have lived here in absolute isolation. They do not speak any known language. They use no metal tools. They have no currency, no wheels, no written history. And yet they survive, thriving in ways scientists still don't fully understand. They hunt, they fish, they build, and most of all, they protect, fiercely, relentlessly, without exception. The moment a stranger approaches, the Sentinelese rise from the trees with bows drawn, spears raised, and a silence sharper than any blade. There are no negotiations, no warnings, only arrows flying swift and certain. In 2006, 2 fishermen drifted too close to the island by accident. They were killed before they ever reached shore. When helicopters came to recover the bodies, they were met with a storm of arrows, forcing a retreat. The Indian government has since declared the entire island and its waters off-limits, protected by law. No boats may pass within 5 kilometers, no drones, no scientists, no missions. Not even the government dares to go there now. This is not just about danger, it is about respect. The Sentinelese are believed to be one of the last truly uncontacted tribes on Earth. Their immune systems are so unexposed that even a simple cold could be deadly. One visit could wipe out their people. So the world watches from afar, curious, puzzled, and powerless. But curiosity has a way of testing boundaries. In 2018, a young missionary attempted to land on North Sentinel Island, hoping to bring his faith to the tribe. He never returned. His journal, later recovered, described the moment he stepped onto the sand and the silence that followed. No one saw him again. What makes the Sentinelese so determined to remain alone? What stories do they tell by firelight? Do they remember the last ice age, the first tides the stars before maps were made? Or perhaps in a world full of noise and surveillance, they are the last keepers of true silence. A people untouched, unbothered, and free. The jungle breathes quietly now. No roads, no fences, no machines. Only the whisper of leaves and the soft crackle of distant fire. North Sentinel Island does not want you there, and for once, the world listens. And so the island remains a silent world, untouched by modern hands, where time has stopped and the trees still remember a life without outsiders. But this is only one among countless forbidden places still hidden across the earth. Some are cursed. Others were sealed by ancient kings. And a few, like this one, are guarded by people who have never forgotten how to say no. Our journey will continue. It will take us deeper into mysterious islands that have left even scientists baffled, buried cities lost beneath stone, and sacred temples that exist far beyond the edges of human settlement. The map is still vast, and we've only just turned the first page. Temple of Khalasa, Egypt, forbidden by the curse of the pharaohs. In the heart of Egypt's southern sands, hidden beneath layers of silence and stone, lies a place whispered about, but rarely named. It is not found in guidebooks. Few maps show its true location. And even among Egyptologists, it is spoken of with unease, as if merely acknowledging it might awaken something best left undisturbed. This is the Temple of Khalasa, and it is not meant to be explored. Unlike the majestic temples of Karnak or Luxor, Khalasa is not a place of celebration or public worship. It is a sealed sanctuary, lost in the desert beyond Aswan, barely accessible, intentionally forgotten. The first modern mention of it came from a British archaeological report in the early 1900s, which described an unusually intact subterranean structure covered in symbols that do not match any known dynastic period. The report was never published. The team who wrote it vanished. It is said that Khalasa was not built by one pharaoh, but by a hidden priesthood, perhaps as early as the first intermediate period or even before. According to fragmentary inscriptions, it was created to contain a divine secret, a relic or power too dangerous to be seen. Those who entered the temple, the texts warned, would be struck not by the wrath of the gods, but by the silence of the soul. No one is sure what that means, but the fear is real. In the 1980s, a joint research expedition attempted to reach Khalasa using satellite imaging and local guides. The team made camp. 3 days later, their communication ceased. When officials arrived, the camp was intact but completely empty. No signs of struggle, no bodies, just journals left open mid-sentence and recording equipment still running. Nothing useful was recovered. Since then, the Egyptian government has banned all research at the site, citing both national preservation and public safety. The local Bedouins refuse to approach it. Some believe the temple is cursed. Others claim it is alive, not metaphorically, but in the sense that it responds to those who enter. The air becomes heavier, the light bends, the walls hum even when there is no wind. But whether cursed, protected, or simply misunderstood, the Temple of Kailasa remains off limits for a reason. Not because it is sacred, not because it is forgotten, but because something within it has made it clear humans are not welcome here. So if ever you find yourself wandering the sands of southern Egypt and you hear a name carried by the wind, something ancient, something buried, keep walking. Don't look back. And above all, don't try to find it. Mount Kailash, Tibet, the sacred peak no one is allowed to climb. Among the highest ranges of the Himalayas, where clouds brush ancient snow and the sky feels just a breath away, stands a peak untouched by human feet. Perfectly symmetrical, crowned in white, year-round, and rising to over 600 meters, Mount Kailash may not be the tallest mountain in the world, but it is perhaps the most forbidden. No one has ever reached its summit, and no one is meant to. To billions of people across Asia, Mount Kailash is not a challenge to conquer. It is a divine axis, the center of the world, where gods are said to dwell and time itself may bend. In Hinduism, it is the throne of Lord Shiva, encircled by celestial rivers. In Buddhism, it is Mount Meru, the spiritual heart of the universe. In Jainism, it marks the liberation of their first great teacher. In Bon, the ancient Tibetan faith, it is the home of the sky goddess Sipimen. It is not a mountain, it is a living temple. And temples, sacred ones, are not to be trespassed. Throughout history, some have tried. The most famous attempt came in the 1980s, when a renowned mountaineer permitted by the Chinese government turned back voluntarily. He said he dreamed the night before his final ascent of voices telling him, "Step no further." Others who have disrespected the mountain are said to have faced misfortune, illness, madness, and strange deaths. Some locals claim that even birds avoid flying over its peak. And it's not just spiritual warnings that keep people away. Geological surveys have noted bizarre anomalies in the area, magnetic irregularities, inexplicable rock patterns, and rumors of time distortion. Pilgrims who circle the mountain on foot say they feel days pass in hours, or hours stretch into silence. They don't seek to climb it, only to walk around it, a journey called the Kora, believed to cleanse sins and rebalance one's soul. To climb Kailash would not just be a trespass of earth, but a trespass of heaven. That is why even today climbing Mount Kailash is strictly forbidden. Not by force, not by fences, but by something far older and far more absolute. Because some places are not here to be conquered. They are here to remind us that not every peak exists to be touched. Some are meant only to be revered. So if you ever find yourself beneath the silent shadow of Kailash, stop, breathe, and look up. That is as far as you need to go. Hypogeum of Hal-Saflieni, the mysterious sound that makes people disappear. Some secrets lie buried not in distant islands or mountaintop temples, but deep beneath our feet, carved into stone, waiting in silence. Our path now leads us underground. Beneath the unassuming streets of Paola, Malta, lies a hidden world that predates the pyramids. A subterranean labyrinth chiseled entirely from limestone. The Hypogeum of Hal-Saflieni is not merely a tomb, it is something older, something stranger, discovered by accident in 1902. This underground complex descends 3 levels into the earth, forming chambers. Corridors and hollows so precisely cut it's unclear how such work could have been done over 5,000 years ago with no metal tools. Archaeologists believe it served as both a burial site and a place of ritual. But that explanation only scratches the surface. In one of its chambers, there is a space known as the Oracle Room. It is here that sound becomes something else. The acoustics are so finely tuned that even a whisper is amplified and reverberated, vibrating the bones, echoing through the rock. Experiments show that sounds at 111 Hz, the precise resonance of the human voice in this chamber, induce altered states of consciousness. Some who've entered the chamber report hearing voices that weren't there, or feeling as if the walls themselves were listening back. And then, there are the disappearances. Over the years, whispers have emerged of a group of school children who once ventured into the hypogeum and never returned. Authorities claimed it was an exaggeration. But to this day, no one is certain how far the tunnels once stretched, or whether all of them have truly been mapped. There are passages now sealed off, places where the air turns cold and compasses stop working. Some say the hypogeum connects to older, deeper networks beneath Malta. Others believe it touches a memory older than history itself. No modern visitor is allowed to enter alone. Only a handful are permitted each day. No flash photography, no loud voices, only stillness, only respect. Because here, beneath layers of earth and time, lies something that cannot be explained, only felt. And if you listen closely, you might just feel the stone listening back. Bohemian Grove, USA, where the secret elite gather. Hidden deep within the redwood forests of California lies a vast stretch of land that the public is never allowed to enter. No signs, no maps, no official explanation. All that's known is this: every summer the world's most powerful men quietly arrive. Presidents, billionaires, military generals, the elite of America. They don't come here to relax. They come to take part in a strange ritual performed beneath a towering stone owl, an idol over 30 feet tall. At nightfall, they gather around the flames and burn an effigy called Care. They chant, they laugh. They call it symbolic. But no one outside really knows what happens inside. Cameras are strictly forbidden. Anyone caught trespassing is immediately removed. One journalist once disguised himself to get in, but his footage was erased from the internet soon after, and no official statement was ever given. Some say wars have been planned here. Others believe the next president of the United States was chosen under those very trees, not through elections, but by quiet agreement. Bohemian Grove doesn't need guards. It's protected by silence. And maybe that's the most chilling part of all. No one really knows what's happening in the darkness of this forest. The Tomb, headquarters of the Skull and Bones, secret society at Yale University. Right in the heart of Yale University, an institution that has produced dozens of world leaders and influential thinkers, stands a windowless gray stone building with no sign, no doorbell, and no open hours. Among the wide-open lawns and proud architecture of the campus, it's the only place that no one is allowed to enter, except those whose names are already on the list. That building is known as the Tomb, the headquarters of Skull and Bones. A secret society founded in 1832, still active nearly 200 years later, and widely believed to be one of the most powerful underground organizations in American political history. Each year, the society selects exactly 15 senior students from Yale's graduating class. Among them, at least 3 have gone on to become presidents of the United States. William Howard Taft, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush. Others have led American intelligence agencies, such as Porter Goss, who served as CIA director under President George W. Bush, or William Bundy, a key national security advisor during the Cold War. Still others rose to power in economics, media, and global finance, like Austin Goolsbee, senior economic advisor to President Obama, or Henry Luce, founder of 4 globally influential magazines, Time, Life, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated. From the White House to the Pentagon, from Wall Street to major media conglomerates, the influence of Skull and Bones stretches across every major pillar of American power. But what has kept Skull and Bones under suspicion for nearly 2 centuries is not just its secrecy, but the growing belief that this group holds real power behind the curtains of global politics. Numerous researchers and independent journalists have concluded that this is no ordinary student network, but rather a silent alliance designed to groom, place, and protect its members across the highest levels of influence in government intelligence, military, banking, media, and academia. And yet, what happens behind the locked doors of the tomb remains largely unknown. Investigative reports and second-hand accounts suggest that to become a Bonesman, each new initiate must undergo a ritual death. The candidate lies inside a coffin, is read a series of cryptic oaths, and symbolically renounces their old identity to be reborn as a loyal member of the society. Some have even claimed that the rite takes on an occult tone, resembling a symbolic offering of the soul. More disturbingly, multiple reports allege that the initiate must confess their darkest personal secret, whether a moral failure, legal crime, or private shame. These confessions are recorded and stored within the society's private archives, creating a lifelong bind to the group. This is no simple initiation. It's a contract. And for those who break it, the consequences can be devastating. According to those who've tried to expose the group, anyone who betrays Skull and Bones risks having their secrets revealed, leading to ruined careers, public disgrace, or worse. Some claim the price could even be death, because by then, they've already sold their soul. Over the years, a number of journalists, former members, and investigators who attempted to speak out about the society have met with suspicious accidents or untimely deaths. These stories only deepen the fear that Skull and Bones is far from just an old campus tradition. And that is why this place, right in the middle of Yale's prestigious campus, is undoubtedly one of the most forbidden locations on Earth. Pentagon Basement, the forbidden depths beneath the Department of Defense. Everyone knows the Pentagon, the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense and the symbol of the world's most powerful military force. A 5-sided structure covering over 6 million square feet with endless hallways, countless offices, and enough turns to lose even experienced staff. But there is one place inside the Pentagon, unmarked, unlisted, and strictly off-limits, buried deep beneath the surface. The Pentagon Basement. It's not for visitors, not for new recruits, and it never appears on any floor plan ever leaked to the public. Why is it forbidden? Official records acknowledge 5 above-ground floors and 2 sublevels. But former intelligence officers and defense insiders have hinted that the real number may be 6 or more. Beneath the known basements are said to be a network of military tunnels, emergency nuclear command facilities, and most secretly the storage and testing sites for classified defense projects. This is where many believe the U.S. military stores its full-scale nuclear response protocols, global satellite defense controls, and even recovered UFO technology or materials linked to unidentified aerial phenomena. Some theorists go further, suggesting that beneath the Pentagon lie a parallel command center independent from civilian oversight, active military-grade artificial intelligence experiments, and an archive of black files, documents so classified they fall outside even congressional review. None of these claims have ever been confirmed. But in 2021, during a wave of leaked documents, one set of schematics, allegedly showing underground Pentagon rail lines, surfaced online only to be removed within minutes. The account that posted them disappeared permanently. To the rest of the world, this basement remains a strictly forbidden zone. Every access point is guarded by armed personnel. No badge opens the doors without the highest level clearance. No camera has ever seen what lies beyond. And if anyone has walked those tunnels, they've never been allowed to speak of it. And so beneath the land of liberty and transparency lies a place where truth is buried under steel concrete and silence. A hidden world directly beneath the feet of the most powerful men on Earth, but one that you will never be allowed to reach. What's hidden inside Top Secret Area 51? the most forbidden and mysterious place in America. If you're a die-hard fan of extraterrestrials and unidentified flying objects UFOs, then Area 51 needs no introduction. Also known as Groom Lake, this site is an ultra-classified U.S. Air Force facility that has become one of the most iconic and mysterious locations in modern history. It was established under the directive of then-President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and its official name is Homey Airport. Area 51 first became operational in 1955 as a testing ground for the Lockheed U-2 spy plane, which was being developed by defense contractor Lockheed Martin at the time. The remote location was ideal for secrecy. Hidden deep in the Nevada desert near a dry salt flat called Groom Lake, any unauthorized approach to the area can be spotted immediately due to the open terrain and tight surveillance. No one knows for certain how the base came to be known as Area 51. One theory suggests the name originated from the Nevada Test Site, a nearby atomic weapons testing range operated by the Atomic Energy Commission, which was divided into numbered zones from 1 to 30. Since Area 51 lies near Area 15, a zone used by the U.S. military during World War II, some believe the number 15 was reversed to create the now famous name Area 51. Today, the only known way to get a glimpse of this highly restricted zone is to hike to the top of Tikaboo Peak, a mountain located about 26 miles from the main perimeter. From there, with the right equipment and a steady lens, you might just catch a distant view of America's most secretive airbase. Are there aliens at Area 51? That's the question countless people have been asking for decades. And because of the extreme secrecy maintained by the U.S. military, Area 51, often called the most classified site in America, has become the center of endless speculation. Chief among them, that the government is hiding extraterrestrial beings within its walls. One of the most widely discussed testimonies comes from Dr. Boyd Bushman, a senior scientist in the field of aerospace, who claimed to have worked directly inside the mysterious facility. Before his death in 2014, Bushman appeared in a now famous interview revealing details that would shake public understanding of Area 51. According to him, the base not only housed recovered alien spacecraft, such as fragments from the alleged 1947 UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico, but also the bodies of alien beings themselves. Bushman claimed his primary task at the base was to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology for use by the U.S. military. He even stated that he had direct communication with alien beings and provided photographs, which he believed were evidence of their presence. According to Bushman, the aliens currently working inside Area 51 originated from a planet called Quintumnia, located approximately 68 light-years from Earth, around 646 trillion kilometers away. He said their disc-shaped spacecraft had a diameter of 11.8 meters, and due to advanced propulsion technology, could travel to Earth in just 45 years. He further claimed that at least 18 aliens were actively employed by the U.S. government, one of whom was allegedly 250 years old. Describing their appearance, he said they stood between 130 to 180 centimeters tall, had fingers 30% longer than human hands, and toes webbed together like amphibians. Perhaps most shocking of all was Bushman's statement that the U.S. government had signed a secret agreement with these extraterrestrials, allowing for ongoing contact and collaboration. He also asserted that multiple U.S. presidents had met with alien beings, or UFOs, during their terms. Adding to this, Timothy Good, a former Pentagon advisor, once claimed that President Dwight D. Eisenhower held 3 secret meetings with alien visitors in 1954, and that there were numerous witnesses at the time. Over the years, numerous videos have surfaced allegedly showing UFO activity around Area 51. Though most are inconclusive or unverified, they've only fueled the belief that something beyond human is being kept there hidden in plain sight. Aside from the alleged extraterrestrial secrets, another major reason Area 51 remains strictly off-limits to the public is its proximity to the nuclear testing grounds of the Atomic Energy Commission, AEC. Because of this location, the base has been repeatedly exposed to harsh environmental conditions over the decades. Before conducting any nuclear experiments, the AEC typically issued advance warnings to evacuate Area 51 if necessary. However, in 1957, during a test known as Hood, the Commission detonated a 74-kiloton nuclear device without informing Area 51 beforehand. The blast, intended to study the impact of a compromised nuclear warhead, was so powerful that it was believed to be 5 times stronger than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Although the explosion didn't cause severe structural damage to the base, the radiation fallout from the test had long-term effects. To this day, the land surrounding Area 51 remains contaminated with residual radiation from decades of nearby nuclear testing. Another hidden danger lies in the development of experimental technologies and the disposal of sensitive equipment. In order to maintain secrecy, the military has often destroyed old prototypes by burning them in large open pits, but without providing proper safety measures for workers involved in the process. Without protective gear or air filtration, employees were regularly exposed to toxic chemicals and smoke. Military officials claimed that importing advanced safety equipment would compromise security protocols, so staff were told to proceed without it. Over time, several workers fell ill and died from unexplained conditions that many believe were caused by prolonged chemical exposure. Worse still, the radiation and toxic byproducts may have affected not just personnel on base, but also residents in nearby towns. In the years that followed, reports of rising cancer rates in surrounding communities sparked outrage, legal complaints, and public condemnation. For a place meant to be hidden, Area 51 left behind more visible scars than anyone could have imagined. The Korean DMZ, a forbidden border frozen in time. There is a place on the map where 2 nations speak the same language, share the same ancestry and customs, yet are divided by a cold, silent line stretching over 250 kilometers, a place no one is allowed to enter without risking their life. This is the Korean Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, one of the most strictly forbidden areas on Earth. Established in 1953, after the Korean War ended in a ceasefire, the DMZ is a 4-kilometer-wide buffer zone that cuts across the Korean peninsula, separating North Korea and South Korea. And yet, despite its name Demilitarized Zone, it is anything but unarmed. It is a strip of land where both armies stand in full combat readiness, their weapons always aimed at one another. No tourists, no civilians, only landmines, electric fences, and one of the most sophisticated surveillance systems in the world. The DMZ is not just a border. It is a political scar stretching across time, marking a division that has remained unresolved for more than 70 years. Within this forbidden zone lies a small compound called Panmunjom, the site of rare negotiations between the 2 sides. Here, in a small blue building, the border runs straight through the middle of a meeting room. One half belongs to the south, the other to the north. A single misplaced step could ignite a global crisis. Occasionally, high-level meetings are held here. But most of the time, Panmunjom sits in heavy silence, guarded by soldiers who do not blink, standing still like statues, as if even the smallest movement could signal the beginning of another war. There have been firefights, desperate defections soaked in blood and desperation, soldiers lost in silence, and stories the world has never heard. To outsiders, the DMZ is just a line on the map, seen through distant photos and official statements. But inside the DMZ, there are things even satellites cannot see. A land frozen in time. A border no one dares to cross. A gate into a mystery the world has yet to fully understand. The Forbidden Waters. Around Diego Garcia, a silent shadow. In the Indian Ocean. Far out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, thousands of kilometers from any continent, lies a tiny island few people have ever heard of. And yet it's one of the most completely off-limits places on Earth. This is Diego Garcia, a remote coral atoll that's officially part of the British Indian Ocean Territory, but has long been under near total control of the United States military. No civilians live there. No tourists are allowed. and the waters surrounding the island are marked on international maritime maps as strictly forbidden. Since the 1970s, all native Chagosian inhabitants were forcibly removed. Families who had lived, worked, and buried their ancestors on the island for generations were put on ships and exiled, never to return. Since then, Diego Garcia has become a secretive military base, isolated in the vast blue operated jointly by the US and UK. To this day, no one outside the military is allowed to step foot on the island. No fishing boats may approach its shores, and even satellite imagery reveals only fragments of what lies there. So what exactly is hidden on Diego Garcia? According to declassified documents, it serves as a hub for strategic radar systems and military satellites, and as a refueling base for long-range bombers, some capable of carrying nuclear payloads. Other sources have alleged that Diego Garcia has also been used for covert detention and interrogation beyond the reach of international law. Still darker theories claim the island is a surveillance outpost for UFO activity or a central node in global shadow operations, though no conclusive evidence has ever surfaced. All we know for certain is this. In the middle of a vast ocean, there exists a patch of land that remains utterly silent. No city lights, no human voices. Only an invisible fence of radar and secrecy. An island with no nation. A door no one dares to open, and a mystery still unsolved. Plutonian, the cursed gate to the underworld, Turkey. And now from a sealed island in the middle of the ocean, we drift into a place of a completely different kind. No more radar, no more war. Only ancient stone ruins, and a curse that echoes from the age of myth. In the ruins of ancient Hierapolis, in what is now Western Turkey, there once stood a site the Greeks and Romans knew by a haunting name, Plutonian, the gate to the realm of Hades. This was not poetry, not a metaphor. It was a real location. A small cave nestled among crumbling temples was believed to be a place where the living could come into direct contact with the world of the dead. In ancient times, people believed this place held the power of the god of death. Priests would lead animals into the cave, and within seconds, they would collapse lifeless, untouched by any weapon. No one knew why. Locals believed it was Hades himself breathing out through the earth, claiming what was his. And so the Plutonian was strictly forbidden. Ordinary citizens were not allowed near it. Only specially chosen priests could approach, and even they had to hold their breath carefully before entering. It wasn't until modern times that archaeologists uncovered the chilling truth. The cave is filled with high concentrations of carbon dioxide, especially in the early morning, enough to kill any living creature within moments. And yet, the eerie part is that this deadly effect exists only inside the cave. The surrounding ruins are completely safe, as if the gate knows exactly where death begins and where it ends. Today, the Plutonian is preserved as part of the Hierapolis Pamukkale archaeological site, but the central cave, the so-called gate to the underworld, is still completely sealed off. No one is allowed to enter. No one dares to step down, not because of superstition, but because science has confirmed that the death it brings is very, very real. A sacred, forbidden zone. A boundary between life and death. A place where whether you believe in the underworld or not, no one dares open the gate again. Poveglia Island, Italy. The island that was never meant to be lived on. Just off the Venetian lagoon, hidden among gentle waters and drifting mist, lies a small island that no one dares to visit. From afar, it looks peaceful with ancient trees, overgrown vineyards, and the silhouette of a crumbling bell tower rising quietly above the green. But for more than a century, Poveglia has been abandoned, left untouched, as if the earth itself has chosen to forget it. Its story begins in the year 421, when refugees from Padua and Este arrived on the island, seeking shelter from barbarian invasions sweeping through mainland Italy. Worn down by war disease and exhaustion, many died shortly after arriving. And with those early deaths, a long and haunting legacy began to settle into the soil. By the 9th century, the island's population had slowly grown and stabilized. But peace would not last. In the 1300s, Poveglia became a prize of war, its location too valuable, its resources too tempting. The island soon turned into a battlefield between Venetian and Genoese forces. It's said that thousands of soldiers died here, their bodies buried where they fell. The name Poveglia began to echo with another darker title, the Island of the Dead. But that was only the beginning. In the 17th century, the Black Death swept across Europe, claiming over 200 million lives. As panic gripped Venice, the government made a decision: those infected would be exiled to Poveglia. They called it a quarantine station, but in truth, it was a place of no return. Boats would carry the sick across the lagoon, but none would come back. People were left to die alone away from the city, their names forgotten. So many died that it's believed nearly half the island's soil contains human ash and bone. Then, in 1922, the island was repurposed again, this time as an asylum. Isolated and poorly supervised, it quickly became a place of madness. Patients screamed through the night. Some claimed to see shadows watching them from empty halls. One doctor, rumored to have performed cruel experiments later, threw himself from the tower. No one followed. By the late 20th century, stories of Poveglia grew darker. Fishermen began avoiding the waters around it. Some say bones still get caught in their nets. Others whisper of a feeling, a presence that never quite leaves you once you've stepped ashore. Today, the island is completely off limits, not just by law, but by fear. No one lives there. No one even dares anchor nearby. It is a place frozen in sorrow, saturated with silence, and held apart from the world, not forgotten, but forbidden. Hashima Island, Japan, the ghost city at sea. Far off the coast of Nagasaki, rising out of the waves like a broken battleship, lies a concrete island that once pulsed with life. Hashima, known to many as Battleship Island, was once one of the most densely populated places on Earth. Now it floats in silence, abandoned, fractured, and forbidden. In the early 1900s, Hashima became the site of an ambitious coal mining operation. The Mitsubishi Corporation built towering concrete apartment blocks, schools, shops, and even a hospital, all packed tightly on a slab of land just 480 meters long. Workers and their families flooded in. Life here was hard, but full. The island became a symbol of Japan's industrial might, but underneath the sea, the mine grew deeper. And with it, the darkness grew closer. By World War II, Hashima's story took a darker turn. Korean and Chinese laborers were forcibly brought to the island, forced to work in brutal, suffocating conditions. Many died. Their names forgotten, their graves unmarked. After the war, Hashima boomed again, but not for long. As oil began to replace coal, the mine's value declined. In 1974, the island was shut down. The people were told to leave immediately. And they did, leaving behind furniture, dishes, school books, as if they had vanished overnight. Today, Hashima stands frozen in time. Buildings are cracked and crumbling. The sea batters the outer walls. Rooms are filled with dust and rust, and the shadows of a life that ended too suddenly. And yet, no one is allowed to live here. Not because there is nothing left, but because there is too much. Too many stories buried in concrete. Too many secrets sealed into the walls. And a silence that feels aware. Despite being declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, access is tightly restricted. Some tourists are allowed to visit certain parts, but many areas remain completely off limits. Engineers warn of collapses. Locals warn of something else, a feeling, a heaviness in the air, like the island remembers. Hashima is not a ruin. It is a grave, one that was built above the sea and never meant to rise again. Old Changi Hospital. one of Southeast Asia's most haunted places. Perched quietly on a hill near Singapore's eastern coast, surrounded by tropical trees and the distant sound of waves, stands an abandoned building with shattered windows and peeling paint. At first glance, it looks like any other forgotten hospital. But step closer, and the air begins to change. This is Old Changi Hospital, one of the most haunted places in Southeast Asia, and perhaps the world. Built in the 1930s by the British, it once served as a military hospital. But during World War II, when the Japanese occupied Singapore, the hospital took on a far darker role. It was converted into a prison camp. More than 50,000 prisoners passed through its halls. Not all of them made it out alive. Underground rooms became cells. Treatment rooms became chambers of torture. And what should have been a place of healing became a place of screams. Survivors, those few who lived to speak, described the horrors, starvation-forced confessions, and executions carried out behind closed doors. Many bodies were never found, and many say the souls never left. In the decades since, stories began to surface of headless spirits drifting down hallways, of ghost hunters who entered in groups but found themselves separated, lost in a trance, each wandering in a different direction, as if being led. Some claim to have seen a dark woman in white radiating a suffocating presence. Others, even former patients, spoke of being pushed by unseen hands, or dreaming of men in old military uniforms tying them down and torturing them again and again. The trauma of that place clings to the walls, and those who step inside often say the building watches them back. In 1975, the British handed the site to Singapore. By 1997, the hospital was fully shut down, but it was never torn down. The buildings remain empty, but not silent. Locals report hearing screaming at night. Windows slam without wind. Shadows flicker where no one walks. And to this day, no one has dared to build anything new atop those ruins, because some places are not haunted by ghosts, but by the very memory of what humans once did there. Old Changi Hospital is not just abandoned, it is avoided, not by force, but by fear. Pripyat, Ukraine, the city that time walked away from. It was once a city of light. Built in 1970 for workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Pripyat was a model of Soviet modernity: wide boulevards, amusement parks, theaters, hospitals, schools. A young city, a hopeful city, a city that had no idea how close it stood to disaster. On April 26, 1986, reactor number 4 at Chernobyl exploded. The sky turned a color no one could name. The trees began to burn from the inside out. And within hours, an invisible poison was drifting across rooftops, playgrounds, and baby cribs. Authorities waited 36 hours before evacuating. By the time the announcement came, it was already too late. Residents were told they would be gone for just a few days. They brought only what they could carry. They never returned. Since then, Pripyat has stood frozen, a city preserved not by time, but by fear. Classrooms still have notes on chalkboards. Toys lie scattered across kindergarten floors. A Ferris wheel, never officially opened, looms silently over empty streets, a symbol of joy that never came. And yet Pripyat is not truly silent. Radiation lingers. The air itself is heavy. Some areas will remain uninhabitable for thousands of years. Wildlife has returned: wolves, bears, birds, thriving in the absence of people. But human life does not belong here anymore. The buildings are decaying. Roofs collapse without warning. Dust carries particles that cannot be seen, but can be breathed. And beneath it all, there is still the core, still warm, still dangerous. Even those who venture in with protection suits and Geiger counters speak of something else, not just fear, but a weight, a sorrow, a feeling that the city itself remembers, and that it's not done grieving yet. Because Pripyat is not just a place that was abandoned. It is a place that was betrayed by science, by secrecy, by silence. And now, It stands alone, waiting for a future that will never come. Leap Castle, Ireland, the most haunted castle in the world. Some places are abandoned in an instant, like Pripyat, frozen by fear, silenced by disaster. But others, like this one, were never meant to feel alive in the first place. Hidden deep in the Irish countryside, cloaked in fog and centuries of whispered warning, stands a castle older than most empires. Its walls are thick with stone and something else. Something that never left. This is Leap Castle, a place so steeped in blood, betrayal, and sorrow that even silence feels haunted. Built in the 13th century, Leap Castle was never a peaceful home. It was a fortress, a stronghold of the O'Carroll clan, a family known for their brutal power struggles. It is said that one brother murdered another during a church mass, plunging a sword into him before the altar. The room has since been called the Bloody Chapel, but that was only the beginning. Over centuries, Leap became the site of feuds, executions, and imprisonment. Secret tunnels were built under its floors. Hidden chambers held the condemned. And in one of these hidden rooms, centuries later, workers discovered a pit, an oubliette lined with spikes at the bottom. Prisoners were dropped in and forgotten. When it was finally cleared, hundreds of human skeletons were found impaled and left to rot in darkness. And the dead, it seems, never forgot. Visitors to the castle have reported cold spots, shadowy figures, and sudden panic. One spirit, known only as the Elemental, is said to appear as a dark, rotting mass with a stench so foul it causes nausea. Those who encounter it describe overwhelming dread, not fear, but something deeper, something primal. The castle's current owners have tried to restore parts of it, but some rooms remain locked. And some nights, even the bravest refuse to stay. Because Leap Castle doesn't just feel haunted, it feels awake and watching. For centuries, it has absorbed pain, violence, and death. And whatever lives within those walls now does not want to be disturbed. So if ever you find yourself walking the Irish hills and you see a lonely tower rising through the fog, don't go closer. Don't look in the windows. Medjugorje, Russia's forbidden town, rumored to hide weapons of mass destruction, leaving behind the ancient ruins of gods and curses. We now enter a very different kind of mystery, a place that is modern, real, and entirely erased from the surface of everyday maps. Tucked deep within Russia's icy Ural Mountains lies a town few have ever seen, and even fewer have dared to mention Medjugorje. There are no tourist guides, no satellite markers. And for many years, the Russian government denied its existence altogether. Medjugorje is what's known as a closed town, a sealed-off settlement under full military control, forbidden to all outsiders. What lies inside remains one of the most closely guarded secrets of the modern world. According to various leaked documents and Western intelligence reports, Medjugorje sits near Mount Yamantau, a massive peak reaching over 1,600 meters. Officially, the Russian government has claimed it to be a national food storage research facility. But few believe that. Military analysts suspect that beneath Mount Yamantau lies an enormous underground bunker, possibly designed to store weapons of mass destruction, or to serve as a secure command center for Russia's top leadership in the event of nuclear war. Some theories go even further, suggesting that a vast underground city system lies beneath the mountain, linked to other strategic locations through hidden tunnels wide enough to transport military equipment and personnel. In the 1990s, US spy satellites captured evidence of large-scale construction in the area. Questions were raised, but the Russian government refused to explain. To this day, Medjugorje remains a fully closed town. Access is strictly forbidden. Armed guards patrol every road leading in or out. No foreigner has entered, and no one from within has ever come out to tell the world what lies beyond the gates. But one thing seems certain: governments don't erase entire towns unless there's something there worth hiding. Vostok Station, Antarctica, the coldest place on Earth. If someone asked you where the coldest place on Earth is, you might picture the top of Mount Everest or the middle of a Siberian winter. But the true answer lies much farther south in the heart of the white void known as Antarctica at a remote outpost called Vostok Station. On July 21, 1983, Soviet scientists recorded a temperature of 89.2 degrees at this very site. That's not just the coldest temperature in Antarctica, it's the coldest temperature ever recorded on the surface of the Earth, according to the World Meteorological Organization. At that level of cold, just breathing outside air can kill you. Your lungs can freeze in seconds. No plants, no animals, not even bacteria can survive long in this desolate zone. Only the wind moves here, carving invisible paths across a sea of frozen time. And a single lonely research station holds its ground in one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. But cold isn't the only reason this place is considered forbidden. Beneath Vostok Station lies a secret, even more haunting Lake Vostok, a massive subglacial lake buried under over 4,000 meters of ice. It's been sealed off from the surface for millions of years. No sunlight, no air, no contamination until now. Some scientists believe Lake Vostok may contain unknown life forms, microbes older than any species on the surface. Others believe it could provide clues to how life might survive on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus. But accessing the lake is risky. Any modern bacteria introduced from the surface might ruin the pristine ecosystem forever. Worse yet, something ancient from the lake could escape upward, something we're not prepared to meet. Because of this, access is strictly limited and closely monitored. Only specialized research teams are allowed here, and only for short, carefully controlled missions. Vostok Station remains one of the most isolated and extreme locations on Earth. A place so cold time itself seems to hold its breath. A frozen gate guarding secrets locked away beneath the ice for longer than civilization has existed. The Dry Valleys, Antarctica, the driest place on Earth. You might think the driest place on Earth is somewhere scorched by sunlight, like the vast Sahara or the endless dunes of Arabia. But no, the driest place on this planet is hidden in the coldest one, the Dry Valleys of Antarctica. This remote region has not seen a single drop of rain in over 2 million years. Not a single snowflake has settled long enough to stay. Just stone sand and wind, sculpted by silence. Before scientists reached the southernmost continent, the Atacama Desert in Chile was considered the driest place on Earth, receiving only 4 known rain events in 400 years. But when researchers finally set foot inside the Dry Valleys, they found something even more astonishing. A desert frozen in time. A landscape where moisture doesn't just vanish, it never arrives. The surrounding mountains block snow-carrying winds, and what little ice does form is quickly vaporized by the constant katabatic winds sweeping down from the polar plateau. Nothing grows here. Nothing decays. Even ancient remains, bones, moss meteorites lie exposed, perfectly preserved in the hyper-arid air. It's so dry, so sterile, that NASA has used the Dry Valleys as a testing ground for Mars missions, calling it the closest natural analog to the surface of another planet. And yet there's something deeply strange about this place. Something unnerving. A world without water, where nature holds its breath and time no longer flows. It only waits. You are not forbidden from visiting the Dry Valleys, but few ever go, because nothing lives there and nothing welcomes you back. Highgate Cemetery, England, the vampire legend that refused to die. Hidden behind iron gates and overgrown ivy in North London, Highgate Cemetery looks like something from a Gothic painting. Leaning tombstones, crumbling mausoleums, stone angels with broken wings staring forever into the fog. But it's not just the atmosphere that chills the bones here. For decades, Highgate has been at the center of one of England's most bizarre and enduring paranormal legends. It began in the 1960s, when witnesses claimed to see a tall, dark figure drifting silently among the graves. They described glowing red eyes, sudden drops in temperature, animals found dead with no clear cause. and a strange, overwhelming sense of dread that lingered long after they left. Some called it a ghost. Others believed it was something much older, much darker. They named it the Highgate Vampire. Soon, occult groups, vampire hunters, and curious thrill-seekers began sneaking into the cemetery at night. They performed rituals, opened ancient coffins, and some even claimed to have stabbed the creature through the heart with a wooden stake. None of it stopped the sightings. In fact, the legend only grew. Despite being closed to the public after dark, Highgate remains a magnet for the mysterious. Locals still report flickering shadows, unexplained whispers, and cold spots where no wind ever blows. Today, certain parts of the cemetery are completely off limits. Not because of structural danger, but because of the fear of what people might try to find. Or worse, awaken. It's easy to dismiss the vampire stories as urban myth. But something about Highgate feels different. As if the veil between worlds is just a little thinner here. As if something waits beneath the ivy and stone, watching, remembering, and maybe, just maybe, still hungry. Hoia Baciu Forest Romania, the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. Deep in the heart of Transylvania, beyond the castles and cold stone villages, there lies a forest that even the locals refuse to enter. Its name is Hoia Baciu, but it's better known by another title, the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. At first glance, it looks like any other patch of woods, moss-covered trees, winding dirt paths, shafts of light filtering through the leaves. But step inside, and the air begins to shift. Compass needles spin, phones lose signal, and even the bravest hikers say they feel watched. The forest gained international attention in 1968, when a military technician claimed to have photographed a flying disc hovering silently above the trees. Not long after, stories of strange disappearances began to circulate. A shepherd vanished with a flock of 200 sheep never seen again. A young girl disappeared only to reappear days later, completely unharmed but unable to explain where she'd been. Others reported burns on their skin, strange rashes, or even sudden memory loss after walking through the woods. Some fainted without warning. Some heard voices that weren't theirs. But perhaps most unsettling of all is the clearing. In the middle of the forest lies a perfectly circular patch of land where nothing grows. No trees, no grass, no explanation. Soil tests reveal nothing unusual, but animals avoid it. Drones crash over it, and visitors often report sudden anxiety or overwhelming sadness upon entering it, as if the land itself remembers something and does not want to be disturbed. To this day, scientists and paranormal investigators continue to study Hoia Baciu, but no one has found a definitive answer. Is it radiation, a magnetic anomaly, a tear in the fabric of reality? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is clear. Hoia Baciu is not just haunted by folklore, it's haunted by the unknown. A living forest where the rules of space-time and memory begin to bend. And if you ever decide to walk beneath its crooked trees, be careful where you step. You might just walk into a place that doesn't want to let you go. Hauska Castle, Czech Republic, built to seal the gates of hell. Tucked deep in the forests of the Czech Republic stands a castle that seems to defy all logic. It wasn't built near a trade route, it doesn't guard a border, and it was never meant to house a royal family. In fact, it was built to keep something inside. This is Hauska Castle, a 13th century fortress unlike any other. Not a sanctuary for people, but a prison for darkness. According to ancient legend, the castle was constructed over a bottomless pit in the earth. A black hole so deep, locals believed it was the entrance to hell itself. Before the castle was built, strange things were said to crawl out of the chasm at night, minked creatures, grotesque hybrids, and souls that screamed without mouths. Frightened villagers refused to go near it. Animals refused to graze. Even the birds avoided flying overhead. So the King of Bohemia ordered a structure to be built directly atop the pit. No grand hall, no royal bedchambers. Just a fortress of stone and a chapel built precisely over the hole to seal it shut. To see it, one of the earliest tests of the pit's power came when a prisoner was offered a pardon if he agreed to be lowered into the hole on a rope. They say he lasted less than 30 seconds. When he was pulled back up, his hair had turned completely white. His eyes darted wildly. He screamed uncontrollably, saying, "Only dragons," with faces of men. He died 2 days later. Inside the castle, strange architecture reveals more unsettling truths. Windows that overlook solid stone walls, staircases that lead nowhere, and sealed passages rumored to hold centuries-old skeletons in armor, their faces frozen in terror. Even today, paranormal investigators report growling sounds from beneath the chapel floor, unexplained cold spots, and voices whispering in forgotten tongues. Houska Castle was never meant to protect the living. It was meant to contain something else. A lid on a wound in the earth. A lock on a door we were never meant to open. Wittenoom, Australia, the beautiful town you should never enter. From haunted castles in medieval forests, we now drift to a place that looks peaceful, too. Peaceful. Wittenoom in Western Australia once shimmered beneath an open blue sky. Surrounded by red desert hills and eucalyptus trees swaying gently in the breeze, it could have been the perfect place to raise a family. Take a road trip, or just breathe in the silence. But silence here hides danger, because Wittenoom is deadly. In the 1950s and 60s, this small town boomed with promise. It was built around a thriving blue asbestos mine, one of the largest in the Southern Hemisphere. Jobs were plentiful, houses were built. Children played barefoot in the soft, powdery dust. Dust that glittered in the sun like crushed glass. No one knew it was poison. Blue asbestos, also known as crocidolite, is one of the most toxic substances ever extracted from the earth. Inhaling just a few fibers can lead to mesothelioma asbestosis or other aggressive lung diseases, often fatal, often decades later. By the time the government realized the scope of the disaster, thousands of workers and residents had already been exposed. Some estimates say that over 2,000 people have died as a result. Eventually, the mine closed. The people left. And Wittenoom was literally erased. Removed from road signs, deleted from official maps, even disconnected from the power grid. The Australian government declared the town unsafe and advised no one should ever return. And yet, it still exists. The landscape remains strikingly beautiful gorges carved by time wildflowers blooming after rare rains. But all of it, the soil, the walls, the very air, is laced with invisible threads of death. No fences block the entrance, no guards patrol the roads. But warnings are everywhere. Do not go. Do not breathe. Do not stay. Wittenoom is one of the only places on Earth where beauty itself is a trap. A town frozen in time by a poison you cannot see and a silence that will never be broken. Halley 6. Research Station, Life Without the Sun. The sun, the source of life on Earth, bringing light, warmth, and energy to all living things. Thanks to the sun, humans can grow crops, carry out daily activities, enjoy bright mornings and colorful sunsets. But have you ever wondered if one day the sun completely disappeared? What would our lives become? And yet, in a far-off place at the end of the world, there is a group of scientists experiencing a life that could not be more extreme. No sunlight, no life, nothing but cold and loneliness. That place is Halley 6 Research Station, precariously located on the Brunt Ice Shelf in Antarctica, where winter stretches on with 105 days without the sun. Everything immersed in darkness, temperatures dropping to 55 degrees Celsius, making any drop of water on your skin freeze instantly, even tears and saliva. In fact, just 5 to 10 minutes without protective gear, and your body temperature will plummet rapidly. Your body will shiver violently, your heart will beat faster, and you'll barely survive if you're not warmed up in time. There is nothing scarier than going outside during this time, because just one unexpected snowstorm can leave you lost or dead in the frozen wilderness. But it's not only the physical cold that surrounds you. The emotional coldness is even more terrifying. You can't see your family. There's no high-speed internet for entertainment, no stores, no restaurants. Every connection to the outside world is limited. Even the dream of sipping a hot bowl of noodles feels like a distant luxury. Yet strangely, there are still scientists who volunteer to come here, willing to give up their comfortable lives to face the harshest environment on Earth, to contribute to research on some of the most important issues facing the planet: climate change, the ozone layer, and the polar ice ecosystem. So isn't it worth giving them a like for these silent contributions, friends? No. 81 Chaoyangmen Church, one of the most haunted places in China. In the heart of modern-day Beijing, beneath the glass towers and streams of traffic, stands an old building shrouded in ivy and silence. No warning signs, no barbed wire, and yet no one dares to enter. This is number 81 Chaoyangmen, often whispered to be one of the most haunted buildings in all of China. Originally constructed in the early 20th century for an English priest, the house was never completed for its intended purpose. The priest mysteriously disappeared before it was even finished. No one knew why, and no one stayed long after. In the 1960s, the building was nationalized and handed over to the Red Guards during the Cultural Revolution. But shortly after, it was completely abandoned. And that's when the stories began. According to local legend, during the Republic of China era, a Kuomintang officer lived in the building. When he fled to Taiwan, he left behind his family. His wife, in despair, hanged herself in one of the rooms. After her death, strange occurrences began in the very room where she died. On stormy nights or full moons, people would hear agonizing cries and the sound of glass shattering. Residents living near the church have also claimed to hear screams and sobbing, especially during typhoons. What's more, several disappearances have been linked to the house. One of the most chilling cases happened in 2001, when a group of workers renovating an adjacent basement decided to climb the fence and explore the abandoned house for fun. They were never seen again. Not one of them. Even now, those who pass by number 81 say they feel a cold dread, even on the hottest summer days. No one knows for sure what happened within those walls, and no one dares to go back and find out. But when storms roll in and the windows begin to rattle, those who live nearby say they sometimes see the faint flicker of light in the upstairs room, followed by the soft sound of a woman's voice still crying. A forgotten house can be erased, but a place soaked in tragedy never truly rests. Okipo Land, abandoned amusement park, Gyeonggi Island, South Korea. Before it became a place of shadows, Okpo Land was once filled with laughter. Children squealed on bumper cars, families lined up for swan-themed roller coasters, and the scent of snacks floated in the summer air. But all of that was silenced, not by time, but by tragedy. In the late 1990s, a young girl was killed in a swan ride accident. There was no compensation, no apology, not even an explanation. The park continued operating, as if nothing had happened. Then, in 1999, it happened again. Another girl fell from a ride and died. This time, the old story resurfaced. The owner of the park vanished overnight, and the gates of Okpo Land were shut suddenly without notice. The rides were left in place. The swan car that had once taken a life still dangled from its rail. Nature crept back in vines, climbed over twisted metal, and rust devoured every surface. But beneath the decay, something deeper lingered. People began to whisper about cries echoing at night, about figures seen in mirrors no one stood before. Urban explorers reported malfunctions, lights flickering with no power. Faint laughter cut short midair in the overwhelming sense of being watched. No one ever reclaimed the land, No official investigation, no memorial, only rumors and the memory of what was left behind. In 2011, Okpo Land was quietly demolished to make way for a resort. But to this day, not a single major development has touched the space where the park once stood. Because Okpo Land is more than an abandoned amusement park. It is a graveyard without tombstones, a tragedy without closure, and a warning carved not in stone, but in silence. Niihau Island, Hawaii, the Forbidden Island. Off the coast of Kauai, hidden in the warm shimmer of the Pacific, lies an island wrapped in silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the quiet of a place that has deliberately shut the world out. This is Niihau, known by many as the Forbidden Island, and for good reason. Purchased in 1864 by Scottish plantation owner Elizabeth Sinclair, and still owned by her descendants, the Robinson family Niihau has remained closed to outsiders for over 150 years. The family's promise to the Hawaiian monarchy was simple: protect the island and its people. And so they did, by refusing to let modernity in. Today, only around 70 residents live on Niihau, most of them native Hawaiians who speak the traditional language and continue a way of life that vanished from the other islands decades ago. They live off the land and the sea, with no public infrastructure, no internet, and no connection to the outside world beyond the occasional supply drop or authorized helicopter. Visitors are not welcome. Even native Hawaiians from other islands cannot set foot on Niihau without an invitation, and that rarely comes. The U.S. military, which operates nearby training zones, must coordinate carefully to avoid overstepping boundaries. Those who attempt to sneak in are met with firm resistance, and any documentation about what happens inside the island is scarce, if not entirely absent. Stories swirl in the absence of access. Some say sacred artifacts remain buried beneath the soil. Others believe the island protects a line of unbroken spiritual ancestry preserved like nowhere else on Earth. And then there are the rumors of strange lights in the sky, of secret military activity, of people who came and were never seen again. Perhaps the most unsettling chapter in Niihau's recent history unfolded during World War II. In December 1941, a Japanese pilot crash-landed here after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Unaware of the war, the islanders sheltered him until the truth came to light. What followed was a tragic spiral of fear and betrayal, later known as the Niihau Incident. It left such an impression on American military strategy that it influenced how Japanese Americans were viewed during the war. Today, Niihau remains a land apart, not forgotten, but intentionally removed from view. Its shoreline is visible from neighboring islands, but the truth about what lies within remains veiled by tradition, secrecy, and an unspoken warning to stay away. This isn't just a place that's hard to reach. It's a place that was never meant to be reached at all. The vault that guards the Coca-Cola secret? Deep within the vibrant city of Atlanta, Georgia, there's a vault that the public can see but never open. Inside it lies one of the most closely guarded trade secrets in the world, the original formula for Coca-Cola. The story of this legendary recipe begins in 1866, when John Pemberton, a pharmacist and Civil War veteran wounded in the Battle of Columbus, was searching for a remedy to ease his morphine addiction. In his quest, he accidentally created the prototype of what would become the most iconic soft drink in history. That formula eventually perfected and marketed as Coca-Cola became not just a beverage, but a global symbol, and its ingredients a closely held mystery. Today, the original recipe is stored in a heavily guarded vault at the World of Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, where visitors can learn about the company's history and even witness the bottling process firsthand. You can look at the vault, you can photograph it, but that's where your access ends. According to company lore, only 2 people at any given time are said to know the full recipe. Their identities remain undisclosed, and they are never allowed to travel together to protect against the possibility of both being lost at once. If one dies, the other must choose a successor in absolute secrecy. No documents, no disclosures, just whispers passed down like sacred knowledge, protected by steel silence and over a century of trust. For all the mysteries of ancient temples and lost civilizations, sometimes the most forbidden doors are hiding in plain sight. Fort Knox, the fortress of untouchable gold. You've probably heard the phrase, "safe as Fort Knox," a saying that conjures images of impenetrable walls, steel vaults, and secrets hidden beneath layers of silence. But Fort Knox is more than just a metaphor. It's real. And it guards one of the most restricted and mysterious treasuries on Earth. Officially named the United States Bullion Depository, Fort Knox was completed in 1936 in the state of Kentucky, just south of Louisville. Built during the depths of the Great Depression, its purpose was as bold as its design to secure the nation's gold reserves in a world teetering on economic collapse. Surrounded by thick granite walls, steel-reinforced concrete, and electrified fences, the structure itself resembles a bunker carved from the bedrock of paranoia. The vault door is said to weigh more than 20 tons, and no single person knows the full combination. To gain access, multiple staff members must each input part of the code, ensuring that no one alone can open the door. Inside, it's believed that over 400-500 metric tons of gold, mostly in the form of 27-pound bars, lie stacked in silence. That's nearly half the U.S. gold reserves, valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Yet no official audit has been released in decades, leading many to speculate whether the gold is still there at all. Some say it's empty. Others believe there's more than just gold hidden inside. Security, of course, is unmatched. The U.S. Mint Police, highly trained and armed, guard the premises 24/7. The facility has survived attempted break-ins, conspiracy theories, and even a proposal by Adolf Hitler during World War II to try and seize it just to destabilize the global economy. In over 80 years, only one U.S. President, Franklin D. Roosevelt, has ever set foot inside the vault. In 2017, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin became the first government official in decades to visit, sparking headlines and curiosity. But even he offered no public detail of what he saw. The rest of the world kept far outside the granite walls. No tours, no cameras, no confirmation. Just the myth of America's most fortified building. Is the gold still there? What else might lie beneath? No one can say for sure, and perhaps no one ever will. North Brother Island. The island that quarantined the unseen. As we drift further through this map of forbidden places, we reach the edge of New York City and find an island that most people have never seen, though it's just a breath away from the bustling mainland. Hidden in plain sight within the East River lies North Brother Island, a sliver of forgotten land only 20 acres wide where no one lives. No lights, no traffic, no homes. Just trees reclaiming what's left of crumbling buildings, and a silence that feels far older than the city itself. In the early 20th century, this island served as a quarantine station for infectious diseases, a place to hide away the sick from society's view. Among its most infamous residents was Mary Mallon, better known as Typhoid. Mary, the first identified asymptomatic carrier of typhoid fever in the United States. After refusing to stop working as a cook, even after spreading the disease to dozens, she was forcibly isolated twice. The second time in 1915, she was confined to Riverside Hospital on North Brother Island, where she remained for the final 23 years of her life. Alone, watched, but never truly seen. The hospital has long since closed. The windows are shattered ivy creeping into hallways where stretchers once rolled. Nature has swallowed most traces of human activity. Today, the island is designated as a protected bird sanctuary, off limits to the public. Only select researchers and journalists under special permit are allowed to visit, and even then, briefly. There are no bridges, no ferries, just a haunted memory floating between two boroughs, and yet somehow it still watches the city. So tonight, as you listen, imagine that forgotten shoreline. Let your thoughts settle like dust across the broken tiles. Let the whisper of the wind through empty windows lull you into quiet. You are safe now, far from the isolation wards, far from the voices lost in the tide. Close your eyes and let this forbidden island fade gently into your dreams. Lascaux Cave, France, the hidden gallery of prehistoric souls. As we leave behind the ghostly remains of hospitals and quarantined islands, our journey now turns inward into the ancient belly of the earth itself. Beneath a gentle hillside in southwestern France lies Lascaux Cave, a time capsule sealed in stone, harboring some of the oldest and most breathtaking artworks ever created by human hands. Roughly 17,000 years old, these Paleolithic paintings are not random markings. They are haunting murals of giant deer, wild bulls, and galloping horses drawn with an uncanny sense of motion, life, and reverence. With only flickering torchlight, prehistoric artists transformed rough stone walls into vibrant canvases of survival ritual and perhaps memory. Discovered in 1940 by a group of curious teenagers, Lascaux quickly captured the world's attention. But with every breath of modern air, every footstep and every flash of light, the cave began to die a little. Mold crept in, fed by humidity and carbon dioxide. The colors began to fade. The art began to erode. To protect it, Lascaux was sealed to the public in 1963. What remains today is a place few will ever see with their own eyes, accessible only to a small number of scientists and preservationists. But the silence within the cave still holds their presence. The souls of those who painted by firelight, who stood in awe of the creatures they hunted and the mysteries they worshipped. Tonight, imagine those stone corridors stretching into the dark. Imagine the hushed breath of torchlit chambers, the sound of nothing but your heartbeat echoing off ancient walls. You're not there, but in some gentle way you are. So breathe slowly. Let your mind walk softly through the past and rest as the flickering shadows of Lascaux guide you deeper into dreams. Pine Gap, Australia, the eyes in the outback sky. From ancient walls painted in flickering torchlight, we now lift our gaze toward the heavens, where satellites drift silently watching us from above. And in the vast red heart of Australia's outback lies one of Earth's most mysterious and heavily guarded surveillance sites, Pine Gap. Officially named the Joint Defense Facility Pine Gap, this remote installation near Alice Springs is cooperated by the United States and Australian governments. On paper, it's a ground station for satellite communication, but in truth, it's something far more powerful and far more secretive. No civilians are allowed inside. No fly zones stretch wide above it. No photos, no maps, just desert, and a facility that never sleeps. Built during the Cold War, Pine Gap became the brain of a vast surveillance network, intercepting global signals, monitoring missile launches, and tracking targets with terrifying precision. It houses geosynchronous satellites capable of eavesdropping on almost every part of the Earth's surface. Some say it's the Southern Hemisphere's answer to Area 51. Rumors speak of underground levels, AI-driven tracking systems, and connections to nuclear command infrastructure. Others whisper of extraterrestrial cooperation, hidden spacecraft technology, and off-world data gathering. Whatever the truth may be, what's certain is this: you're not allowed in. And you're certainly not allowed to know what's going on inside. Even its location, seemingly in the middle of nowhere, is part of the design. In the endless silence of the outback, no unwanted ears can overhear. No curious eyes can see too far. So tonight, as satellites pass overhead and desert winds carry secrets across the plains, we drift quietly through the shadows of Pine Gap, where the sky itself is under surveillance and the truth remains locked behind steel and silence. Breathe easy. Let the red dust settle. And let the stars above remind you some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only softly dreamed about. From one forbidden fortress to the next, we now drift toward a place that welcomes visitors with open doors, but hides something deeper in its halls. The Stanley Hotel, where beauty sleeps beside ghosts. Perched in the mountains of Colorado, the Stanley Hotel offers sweeping views of the majestic Rockies. But this is no ordinary retreat. It's a destination reserved for the bold, the curious, or those drawn to the paranormal. If you've read Stephen King's best-selling horror novel, The Shining, you've already visited this hotel, at least in spirit. King stayed here in room 217, and what he experienced sparked one of the most terrifying stories in modern fiction. The Stanley first opened its doors in 1909, welcoming guests seeking the crisp mountain air and luxury accommodations. With its elegant architecture and stunning scenery, it became a cherished escape. But inside these halls, something peculiar began to stir. Over the decades, strange rumors took root. Hotel staff reported hearing a piano playing softly in the ballroom late at night, despite the room being locked and completely empty. Some guests claimed to see the faint silhouette of a woman in a vintage dress gliding down the corridor before vanishing into thin air. In room 217, the very room where King once stayed, visitors have told stories of flickering lights, luggage shifting on its own, and the unsettling sense of someone standing beside the bed, silently watching in the dark. Paranormal investigators have flocked to the Stanley reporting unusual electromagnetic readings, especially on the second floor. Some suggest the hotel may sit at the intersection of spiritual frequency bands, a place where lingering souls have yet to find peace. But what makes the Stanley truly unique is that it doesn't hide its haunted past. It embraces it. Evening ghost tours are offered regularly. Room 217 is always booked, and fear itself has become the hotel's most powerful attraction, a place breathtakingly beautiful, yet bone-chilling in ways that defy logic. So the question remains, are the spirits here truly dangerous? Or are they simply memories, echoes of lives once lived, drifting through empty corridors? Would you dare spend the night? Some have tried, not all have slept. La Rinconada, the highest town in the world. Let us leave behind the ancient ruins and forbidden temples and head toward a place that defies all logic. A place where life clings to the edge of the world, gasping for air. And yet people stay. La Rinconada, a name that sounds like something out of a fairy tale, but it's a harsh, frozen reality. Perched high on the slopes of Anania Grande in the Peruvian Andes, this town sits at an altitude of over 500 meters, making it the highest permanent human settlement on Earth. The air here is so thin that oxygen levels drop to barely 50% of what they are at sea level. Climbing a few steps can leave you dizzy. Visitors often suffer from nausea, headaches, chest tightness, and in extreme cases, altitude sickness so severe they pass out. And then there's the cold. Beneath the town lies a massive glacier, radiating a bone-deep chill that never goes away. The average temperature hovers around 1 day year-round, sometimes plummeting to 10 degrees Celsius with no central heating, no stable electricity, no clean water, and no proper hospitals. The roads are muddy from melting ice, the houses are poorly built, and life feels more like survival. Still, thousands of people live here. Why? Because gold sleeps beneath their feet. Originally, a small mining camp, La Rinconada, exploded in population after the price of gold surged by over 235% between 2001 and 2009. Desperate people from across Peru and beyond came hoping to strike it rich. But in this place, gold comes at a brutal cost. Miners work under a system called cachorio, where they must labor for 30 days without pay under grueling and unsafe conditions. Only on the 31st day are they allowed to take home whatever gold they can dig out with their bare hands. If they're lucky, they find a nugget and change their lives forever. But most find nothing. No contracts, no protections, no guarantees. They stay not because they want to, but because they can't afford to leave. And so the cycle repeats. 30 days of labor, 1 day of hope. Then it starts again. La Rinconada is a town where the air itself tries to choke you. The cold threatens to paralyze you, and your only reward is the chance, just the chance, of uncovering a piece of gold that might buy you freedom. But most never leave. They dig, they wait, and they hope. Eastern State Penitentiary, the most haunted prison in America. In the heart of Philadelphia, behind thick stone walls and rusted iron bars, stands a prison where even spirits seem unable to leave. Eastern State Penitentiary, once hailed as a shining model of criminal reform, is now considered the most haunted prison in the United States. When it opened in 1829, it was revolutionary. Each inmate was kept completely alone, no books, no voices, no light. They were isolated in absolute silence, and when escorted outside their cells, they were forced to wear hoods over their heads, ensuring they would never see another human face. The idea was to inspire penitence. But in reality, it became a long, slow psychological torture. At its peak, the prison housed over 1,700 men locked inside windowless cells, subjected to brutal punishments like ice baths in winter, iron shackles worn for days, and being chained to the walls without food or water. In 1971, the prison officially closed, but many say the suffering never left. Today, Eastern State functions as a museum, but countless visitors leave with something far more disturbing than photographs. They speak of shadows at the end of empty corridors, footsteps echoing in abandoned cell blocks, or whispers in their ears when no one else was around. Cameras glitch, temperatures drop suddenly, and some guests have even fainted in cell block 12, a place said to be colder than the rest even when the readings say otherwise. This was once the home of Al Capone, the infamous American gangster. He claimed that every night he was haunted by voices, the spirits of those he'd killed screaming in his ears, mocking him in the dark. To this day, staff confirm that cell block 12 experiences the highest frequency of unexplained activity. Doors slam, objects move, heavy breathing is heard just inches away. Some believe that years of isolation and fear carved deep scars into this place, transforming it into a mausoleum for souls that never truly escaped. You can buy a ticket. You can take a guided tour. But the real experience begins when you find yourself standing alone in the middle of a long-forgotten corridor with nothing but the wind whispering through iron bars and the chilling thought that maybe you're not entirely alone. Pluto's Gate, Turkey, the lethal portal to the underworld. Hidden within the ruins of the ancient city of Hierapolis in modern-day Turkey, lies a doorway once feared by all who knew of its existence. To the Romans, it was known as Pluto's Gate, a sacred site dedicated to Pluto, god of the underworld and ruler of the dead. The entrance led not just into a temple, but into what many believe to be a direct portal to the realm of the dead. Ancient historian Strabo, who visited the site over 2,000 years ago, wrote, "Any animal that passes inside meets instant death. I threw in some sparrows, and they immediately breathed their last and fell." For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as myth or exaggeration until the gate was rediscovered in 1965, and the ancient stories were suddenly, terrifyingly confirmed. Modern researchers found that the area is filled with high concentrations of carbon dioxide, CO2, seeping up from underground fissures, poisonous gas, once thought to be divine in origin. At night, when temperatures drop, the CO2 becomes heavier than air, settling into a low-lying invisible pool within the chamber. This invisible cloud of gas forms what scientists call a lethal lake of suffocation. By dawn, the concentration of CO2 reaches deadly levels. Small animals wandering into the enclosure are overcome within seconds. Even humans, if they enter at the wrong time, without protection, could collapse in minutes. The priests of ancient Rome knew this, and they used it to their advantage, performing rituals that seemed like magic, walking through the poisonous fog unscathed, while sacrificial animals died beside them, a terrifying display of divine power. But today we know the truth. The priests likely knew how to navigate the rising and falling layers of gas, staying just above the suffocation zone, never daring to descend too low. Pluto's Gate remains sealed to the public. Its past cloaked in myth, its present proven deadly by science. And yet it still stands. A true doorway to death, visible, real, and very, very forbidden. Svalbard Global Seed Vault, humanity's final backup, hidden in Arctic ice. As we drift deeper into the hidden corners of our planet, we arrive at a place so remote, so untouched by civilization, that even the air seems ancient. In the northernmost reaches of Norway, less than 300 kilometers from the North Pole, a concrete doorway juts out from the side of a frozen mountain. This is not the entrance to a military base. This is not a bunker hiding alien technology. This is the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a structure built not for today, but for tomorrow. Often nicknamed the Doomsday Vault, this facility is carved 120 meters into the solid rock of Platoberget, a permafrost-covered mountain on the island of Spitsbergen. Its location was chosen with mathematical precision, geologically stable, far from fault lines, and high enough above sea level to stay dry even if polar ice caps melt. Temperatures outside can drop to 46 degrees with bitter winds whipping across barren tundra. In winter, the sun vanishes for months. The landscape is silent, frozen, and treacherous. Hardly anyone lives nearby. It's not just remote, it's unwelcoming. But that is exactly the point. Inside the mountain, past several reinforced security doors, lies a vault containing over 1 million seed samples, carefully sealed in 3 separate chambers. Each room is lined with long metal shelves where foil-wrapped seed packets, barley from Bhutan, rice from Bangladesh, wheat from Ethiopia, rest silently awaiting a future where they might be needed. These seeds are not random. Each one is a carefully chosen duplicate of crops stored in gene banks around the world, sent to Svalbard as a final safeguard against catastrophe. If floods wipe out rice paddies in Southeast Asia, if war destroys wheat reserves in the Middle East, if blight, drought, or climate change alters the world's farms forever, these seeds will remain, preserved, waiting, ready to grow again. The air inside is kept at 18 degrees, the ideal temperature for preserving genetic material for centuries. Even if power systems fail, the surrounding permafrost will keep them naturally frozen. Every single aspect, from the reinforced blast-proof doors to the specialized cooling system, is designed to withstand time, neglect, and disaster. But despite its noble mission, entry is strictly forbidden. Not even the Norwegian public is allowed inside. Only a small number of international gene bank representatives are granted access, and only under specific authorized circumstances. No tours, no sightseeing, no cameras allowed beyond the outer tunnel. And why? Because this place holds the keys to our future. Too many fingerprints, too much warmth, too much exposure, and everything could be lost. The air must remain still, the shelves undisturbed, the cold unbroken. This is not a place for curiosity. This is a place for hope. A hope that even if the worst should come, war, famine, extinction, life will still have a second chance. In this silent mountain, beneath meters of ancient Arctic ice, lies a gift we've left for generations not yet born. A seed, a future, locked in cold and darkness, waiting for the light. Fukushima Exclusion Zone, where time froze after the meltdown. Some places carry so much pain that merely speaking their name feels heavy. Fukushima is one of those places. In March 2011, a devastating 9.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the northeastern coast of Japan. Within less than an hour, a massive tsunami with waves towering several stories high slammed into the shoreline, swallowing entire towns in seconds. Over 20,000 lives were lost, tens of thousands went missing, and whole cities were erased from the map. But that was not the end. The tsunami reached the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, destroying its cooling systems. 3 reactors melted down, releasing radioactive material into the air, soil, and sea. It became one of the worst nuclear disasters in human history, on par with Chernobyl. The exclusion zone, and a mass evacuation, unlike anything in modern Japan. Within hours of the first explosion at reactor number 1, over 160,000 residents living within a 20-30 kilometer radius were ordered to evacuate. They had no time to prepare. Many left with only what they could carry, clutching children leading the elderly boarding buses through tears and confusion. An entire region, once vibrant, fertile, and full of life, was sealed off. No one was allowed back. Schools were shuttered, hospitals abandoned, houses frozen in time, dust covered, still holding half-eaten meals and family photos on the walls. What remained were the remnants of a life stolen by something invisible: radiation. People lost their homes, their communities, their sense of safety. Some would never return either out of fear or because they simply didn't live to see the day they could. A wound so deep, the world had to stop and watch. The World Bank estimated total economic losses to exceed $235 billion, the costliest natural disaster in recorded history. Over 120,000 buildings were destroyed, more than 300,000 people displaced. Entire neighborhoods turned into ghost towns, and the tragedy didn't stop at infrastructure. Families fractured, mental health crises surged. Some survivors, burdened by grief and loss, chose to end their lives. The disaster became more than an event. It became a national trauma. But amid the rubble, flowers still bloomed. Japan, with its steel resolve and unmatched discipline, refused to surrender to catastrophe. Within weeks, the military had erected emergency shelters and cleared roads. Field hospitals popped up. Survivors received water-food masks and radiation monitors. Everyone from school children to doctors underwent survival training. Nearly $300 billion was allocated to reconstruction. New coastal barriers, 18 meters high, replaced the old ones. Tsunami warning systems were upgraded. A national seismic laser network was installed to detect even the smallest tremors. In the hardest-hit regions, people planted cherry blossoms. Summer festivals resumed. Children ran through schoolyards, rebuilt from rubble. Bit by bit, a new Fukushima began to rise. Fukushima today, from ground zero to a symbol of hope. Now, over a decade later, some parts of the exclusion zone have reopened. Small shops are returning. A few families have come home. Children born in shelters now attend local schools. While lingering fears and hardships remain, every step taken back into this land is an act of courage. Fukushima does not erase the past, but it refuses to let the past define its future. And in that lies the greatest miracle of all. Okinoshima, Japan's forbidden sacred island between the seas. As we leave behind the earthquake-scarred lands of Fukushima, we drift further west, into the open waters that separate Japan and Korea. And nestled in the middle of this sea, silent and untouched, lies Okinoshima, a place where even the wind seems to whisper in reverence. Located off the coast of Munakata in Fukuoka Prefecture, Okinoshima is more than just a remote island. To the Japanese, it is hallowed ground. Once in ancient times, seafaring traders would pass through this strait, their ships loaded with goods, prayers, and hopes for safe passage. Okinoshima was their spiritual waypoint, a stopover to offer rituals to the gods before continuing their perilous voyage across the Korea Strait. Over the centuries, thousands of sacred offerings were left here. Mirrors, swords, beads, and bronze relics, a sign of gratitude, devotion, and deep humility before the divine. These artifacts, remarkably preserved by the island's isolation, now form a treasure trove of Japanese religious history. But today, Okinoshima remains entirely uninhabited and completely off-limits to the public. It has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the entire island is considered so sacred that no one is allowed to set foot on it, with only one exception: a single Shinto priest from the Munakata Taisha Shrine, who is permitted to stay and maintain the island's rituals. Even during the island's once-a-year ritual in May, where a small group of men was traditionally allowed to visit for ceremonial purposes, strict taboos were enforced. No women allowed, no taking of anything from the island. And most mysteriously, no one was ever to speak of what they saw. According to tradition, the sanctity of Okinoshima is preserved not only through physical restriction, but through silence. What lies there, what energy or presence still lingers, remains cloaked in secrecy. But Okinoshima is not the only forbidden island in Japan. Far to the south in Okinawa Prefecture lies another sacred land, Kudaka Island, also known as the Island of the Gods. While parts of the island are accessible, its northern tip remains completely restricted, sealed off from the public, because it is believed to be the dwelling place of divine beings. Kudaka is revered in Ryukyuan mythology as the first island created by the gods, and it remains home to numerous Utaki sacred groves and places of worship unique to Okinawan spirituality. Among them, Fuba Utaki stands as the most sacred and historically significant, once regarded as the spiritual core of the Ryukyu Kingdom. Even today, rituals are held there by female priestesses known as Noro, who continue ancient traditions passed down for centuries. Visitors are expected to approach with utmost respect, and some places remain off limits altogether, not because of human law, but because of divine presence. These are places not meant for tourism, but for reverence. Islands that exist not just on maps, but in memory and myth and in the stillness of the sacred. So close your eyes and imagine standing at the edge of such forbidden shores where time stands still and the silence is not empty, but full of unseen gods. Nitta Shrine, Tokyo's hidden tomb of a cursed samurai. Not all forbidden places in Japan lie on remote islands or locked away in icy vaults. Some are tucked quietly within the very heart of modern cities, hidden in plain sight. In the bustling ward of Ota, Tokyo, stands Nitta Shrine, a place of reverence dedicated to Nitta Yoshioki, a revered military commander from the 14th century. Though today it's affectionately known as the Lucky Shrine and warmly welcomes visitors seeking fortune or protection, not every part of this sacred site is open to the public. Beneath the peaceful exterior lies something far more mysterious, the sealed tomb of Nitta Yoshioki, strictly off limits to all. Even local worshippers who visit daily to offer prayers and tie omamori charms know not to approach the burial site. It's not just out of respect, but out of fear. According to legend, Nitta Yoshioki met a tragic and violent end. During a period of intense political upheaval, he was ambushed at the Yaguchi ferry crossing. Enemy forces secretly drilled holes into the hull of his boat and launched volleys of arrows from both riverbanks. With no escape, Nitta and his loyal retainers were killed in cold blood, betrayed, surrounded, and defenseless. But death did not bring peace. Soon after, those responsible for the ambush began to suffer horrifying fates. It's said the samurai who orchestrated the assassination went mad, screaming incoherently before dying in torment. Villagers, terrified by what they had witnessed, believed a terrible curse had been unleashed. In response, they constructed a shrine at the site of Nitta's death, hoping to calm his restless spirit and prevent further calamity. The shrine became a solemn place of mourning and a warning. To this day, locals believe that anyone who dares to disturb the tomb will be cursed. Not simply with bad luck, but with terrifying visions, flashing lightning in clear skies, falling fire from above, and whispers that crawl through the air like shadows. Some even report hallucinations so vivid they lose touch with reality, plagued by images of burning arrows and the screams of drowning soldiers. Visitors are welcome to pray at the shrine, but the tomb itself is forbidden. There are no barriers, no signs, just an unspoken understanding passed down through generations. Do not cross the line. Because in this quiet corner of Tokyo, amid the hum of trains and neon lights, one of Japan's oldest curses still lingers, cloaked in cedar trees, stone lanterns, and silence. So if you ever wander to Ota Ward and find yourself near the shrine, take a moment to pause, breathe in the sacred air, and listen. Not every mystery is written in history books. Some still watch, wait, and warn. Iwo Jima, the island that breathes history and death. In the Pacific Ocean south of mainland Japan lies a small windswept island surrounded by haunting silence. This is Iwo Jima, a name etched into history, a place once inhabited, now strictly off limits. Once a quiet volcanic island with a small civilian population, Iwo Jima was forever changed during World War II. In 1945, it became the site of one of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific Theater, the infamous Battle of Iwo Jima. For over a month, more than 70,000 U.S. Marines clashed with roughly 21,000 entrenched Japanese soldiers. The island, only 8 square miles wide, became a fiery inferno of gunfire, flamethrowers, and unrelenting combat. the volcanic sands were soaked in blood. Nearly 7,000 American soldiers and over 18,000 Japanese defenders lost their lives, many buried where they fell. After the war, Iwo Jima was left almost entirely abandoned. The civilian population never returned. Decades passed, and the island became a ghost haunted not by spirits alone, but by the memory of unimaginable sacrifice. Deep beneath the island lie hundreds, possibly thousands of remains, entombed within collapsed bunkers and tunnels that still snake through its scorched interior. Today, Iwo Jima is considered a forbidden place, one of Japan's modern kinsakuchi, or sacred restricted sites. Entry is tightly controlled, primarily reserved for Japanese and American officials during rare memorial ceremonies. It is not open to tourists, not marked with souvenirs or sightseeing maps. There are no hotels, no restaurants, only rusting remnants of war, hidden in overgrown paths and forgotten caves. In 2011, the island was designated part of a World Natural Heritage Site due to its unique volcanic geography and the deep historical significance it holds. But despite this recognition, Iwo Jima remains a somber reminder, a silent graveyard where peace was bought with unspeakable loss. The air here is different, heavy, still. As night falls over Iwo Jima, the waves lap against the black shores like whispers of the past, and the sulfurous mist rising from its volcanic heart seems to echo with the voices of those who never left. Perhaps it's not just about honoring the fallen, but about understanding that some ground is so sacred it demands silence. Some islands are not meant for the living to tread again. So if you ever look out across the Pacific and wonder what lies just beyond the horizon, remember, not every island is a paradise. Some are stories carved in ash, sealed in blood, and left untouched for eternity. Mount Lao Jun, the celestial palace on the clouds that foreigners cannot enter. High above the ancient city of Luoyang, shrouded in mist and legend, rises Mount Lao Jun, a sacred peak whose name echoes through more than 2,000 years of Taoist history. Its jagged ridges cradle one of China's most mysterious spiritual sites, a mountaintop shrine so ethereal it is known as the Celestial Palace on the Clouds. This is no mere poetic metaphor. Perched at 217 meters above sea level, the Jade Emperor Peak Yuhuangding appears to float in the sky, cloaked in drifting clouds and silence. Pilgrims and travelers who climb the sacred stairs speak of awe, not just at the staggering natural beauty, but at the powerful energy that seems to radiate from the mountain itself. According to legend, this is where Laozi, the ancient sage and founder of Taoism, once retreated to live and meditate. He is said to have written the Tao Te Ching, his timeless scripture of 5,000 characters atop this very mountain, accompanied only by his green ox and the sound of wind whispering through the peaks. For centuries, Mount Lao Jun has been revered as one of the holiest sites in Taoist cosmology. In the past, entrance to the mountain was free of charge for anyone bearing the surnames Zhang or Li, as Laozi and his most trusted disciples were believed to descend from these lineages. That symbolic gesture, however, has since been discontinued. Still, the sacred aura remains. On rare mornings when sunlight breaks through the mists just right, some visitors claim to witness a Buddhist halo, a glowing ring of light perfectly aligned with the mountaintop shrine, casting an otherworldly aura over the statues of ancient immortals. But while Chinese nationals can still climb and marvel at this sacred Taoist sanctuary, foreign visitors are strictly prohibited from entering. Why? The true reason lies not in religion, but in geopolitics. Mount Lao Jun sits within Luanchun County, an area that hosts active Chinese military facilities. Due to national security concerns, the entire region is classified as a restricted military-adjacent zone. For non-Chinese citizens, access is denied, regardless of intention, even for spiritual pilgrimage. It's a rare intersection of ancient mysticism and modern secrecy. A place where the path to enlightenment passes near barbed wire and silence. Even as temples echo with centuries of chanting, watchtowers keep careful eyes on every path. And so, for those beyond China's borders, Mount Laojun remains unseen, a celestial sanctuary, cloaked not just in clouds, but in caution. Perhaps some places are meant to be guarded, not to keep people out, but to protect the sacred stillness within. The Google Data Centers, the digital fortress that never sleeps. From ancient temples nestled in the clouds, we now shift to something entirely different. Not spiritual, but no less powerful, a fortress of modern data. Beneath layers of steel code and silence exists one of the most secretive structures of the digital age, Google's data centers. They are not marked on tourist maps, and few people outside of Google's elite engineering teams have ever stepped inside. Yet these facilities form the neural backbone of the internet as we know it, often referred to as the central nervous system of Google. These data centers are scattered across the globe in remote locations from Oregon to Finland, Iowa, to Singapore, and they operate with military precision 24 hours a day, 365 days a year without pause. Why such secrecy? Because within these fortified buildings lie hundreds of thousands of servers silently humming through the darkness, crunching data at unimaginable speeds. They handle every Google search you've ever typed, every YouTube video streamed, every Gmail message sent, and even the traffic behind Google Maps Drive and Android updates. Rows upon rows of blinking machines, cooled by intricate climate control systems, are connected by bundles of fiber optic cables, some color-coded in vivid reds, blues, and greens, a rare splash of color in otherwise clinical chambers. Only a handful of authorized engineers ever get to see them in person. Each data center is surrounded by multiple layers of physical and digital security biometric scanners, surveillance systems, reinforced walls, and even laser detection grids. Every access point is monitored and every visit is logged. Even delivery drivers must wait outside a secure perimeter. Google has shared a few photos of the interior's gleaming corridors. Rows of LED-lit servers and vast rooms filled with quiet power. But make no mistake, this is one of the most restricted digital spaces in the world. Why so protective? Because this is where the internet lives. The real one. If even a fraction of these centers were compromised, services used by billions of people daily would instantly be disrupted. Search results, delayed videos, paused midstream navigation, frozen memories lost from the cloud. It is not just information stored here. It is our collective memory, our messages, our queries, our stories. And so behind layers of encryption and reinforced concrete, these centers continue their tireless work, unseen by the world. They quietly power. In a way, they are the cathedrals of the digital era, not made of marble and stained glass, but of silicon and firewalls. Not open to pilgrims, but devoted entirely to the silent worship of uptime and efficiency. A place where the lights never dim and the servers never sleep. Now take a slow breath, and let's drift deeper into the next forbidden corner of our world. But not all mysteries are built by human hands. Some are etched into the very fabric of the Earth itself, marked by magnetic anomalies, unexplained disappearances, and whispers of forces beyond our understanding. From the quiet hum of Google's hidden servers, we now move toward places where silence turns into static, where compasses fail, and logic seems to vanish. These are the cursed triangles. Stretches of ocean and land so shrouded in legend, they have claimed ships, planes, and lives without a trace. Not just the infamous Bermuda Triangle, but a whole network of dangerous geometric secrets scattered across the globe. Tonight, we begin our descent into their chilling enigma. Dragon's Triangle, Japan's forbidden waters of vanishing ships. Some places on Earth seem to defy all logic, where maps grow vague, where compasses spin wildly, and where even the bravest captains glance at the horizon with unease. The Dragon's Triangle, also called the Devil's Sea, is one such place. Roughly 100 kilometers south of Tokyo, this stretch of ocean fans out like a jagged mouth between Japan, the Philippines, and Guam. If you draw the lines on a globe, you'll notice something uncanny. This mysterious triangle sits directly opposite the Bermuda Triangle, almost perfectly mirroring it on the globe's other side. But while Bermuda is famous in the West, Dragon's Triangle holds a quieter, older, and perhaps even darker reputation in the East. Japanese sailors have whispered its name for centuries. And what they whisper are warnings. Boats have vanished here since ancient times. Wooden ships swallowed by calm seas. Entire fishing crews never seen again. Logbooks found adrift, but not a single trace of the people who wrote them. One of the earliest official records comes from the 13th century, when the Mongol fleet under Kublai Khan tried to invade Japan. Over 40,000 soldiers and hundreds of ships were caught in a sudden tempest near these waters, and wiped out by what the Japanese came to call kamikaze divine wind. Centuries later, in modern times, the disappearances continued. Between 1952 and 1954, the Japanese government sent a total of 5 military research vessels to study the region. Their mission to determine why local fishermen were reporting strange occurrences. Dead fish floating to the surface, glowing water at night, electronics going haywire. None of the ships returned. Not even wreckage floated back to shore. The total death toll, over 700 people. Gone. Vanished into the sea. In the aftermath, Japan officially designated the area as dangerous and restricted all further missions. Even scientific exploration was halted. The Dragon's Triangle was declared quite literally a no-go zone. So what's happening here? Some scientists suggest tectonic activity. The region sits atop a deep, volatile trench with frequent underwater earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Entire pockets of land can suddenly collapse beneath the ocean, dragging anything above with it. Others blame methane hydrate explosions, gas buildups under the seabed that, when triggered, cause sudden changes in water density. A ship floating on the surface might within seconds find itself sinking into water that can no longer support its weight. Still, the stories persist. Of strange clouds rolling in from nowhere. Of bright flashes under the waves. Of compasses spinning wildly, electronics failing, and time seemingly pausing. Fishermen near the edge of the triangle speak of sea creatures longer than their boats. Of voices calling out in the fog. Of a pressure in the air that makes birds fly low and refuse to cross. Satellite scans show irregularities regions where radar briefly blanks out, then returns with distorted data. And deep-sea drones have mysteriously lost contact, not because of storms or current, but as if something reached up from the abyss and pulled them in. Some believe the Dragon's Triangle is a tear in reality, a vortex, a place where magnetic fields and gravity don't behave as they should, where time and space blur a rift that swallows what dares enter it. There are even those who link it to ancient legends of Ryugu-jo, the Dragon Palace, beneath the sea, where time flows differently and mortals are never meant to return. Whether scientific mystery or ancient curse, one fact remains. No commercial airliners fly directly over this region. No passenger ships sail through its core. Military and freight vessels steer clear even in modern times. And for those few who've tried to brave the triangle, many never came back. So tonight, as the waves lap gently against the distant shores of Japan, imagine the silent reach of that forbidden sea, its secrets sleeping beneath miles of cold water. Somewhere under the waves lie ships with no stories left to tell, and questions that may never be answered. As you close your eyes, let the mystery settle like ocean mist, a forgotten triangle, a sea that breathes, and a world that still doesn't know what waits beneath. The Bennington Triangle, where people vanish without a sound. As we drift away from the open sea and back to the forested heartlands of North America, there lies a place that looks serene on the surface, yet hides a darkness far older and more unsettling than its postcard beauty would ever suggest. Welcome to the Bennington Triangle, a rugged wooded expanse surrounding Glastonbury Mountain in the quiet state of Vermont. Thick with pine and fog, the region today seems like any other stretch of remote American wilderness. But between 1920 and 1950, it became known for something else entirely. People kept disappearing, without explanation, without a trace, and in some cases, while standing just feet from others. The term Bennington Triangle was coined by author Joseph A. Citro, who noticed eerie patterns among the disappearances. All of them took place near Glastonbury Mountain, a place already steeped in Native American lore. The local Algonquin tribes considered the mountain cursed, a place to avoid, said to be where the four winds meet. According to their stories, the land was home to stone spirits that swallowed people whole. The first known disappearance occurred in 1945, when 75-year-old Mitty Rivers, a seasoned local guide, vanished while leading a group of hikers. He was ahead of the group, turned a bend, and was never seen again. His rifle cartridges were later found by a stream, but no body, no sign of struggle. A year later, Paula Jean Weldon, an 18-year-old college student, went hiking alone on the long trail. She waved to a couple walking behind her, and when they turned the next corner, she was gone. The trail was searched for weeks. Bloodhounds were brought in. Planes flew overhead. Nothing. Then came James Tedford, a veteran and resident of a local soldier's home. He boarded a bus in St. Albans in 1949, witnessed by multiple passengers. But when the bus arrived in Bennington, he wasn't there. His belongings were still on the luggage rack. His seat was empty, yet untouched. In 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson disappeared while playing near a truck as his mother tended pigs. She was only gone for minutes. He wore a bright red jacket, something that should have made him easy to spot. Yet search parties with dogs found nothing. No prints, no fabric, just silence. The final case was perhaps the most bizarre. Frida Langer, an experienced outdoorswoman, slipped and fell into a stream while hiking with her cousin. She told him she'd run back to camp to change clothes. She never made it. Despite intensive searches, nothing turned up until 7 months later, when her badly decomposed body was found in an open field that had already been searched multiple times. Even her cause of death couldn't be determined. So, what happened in the Bennington Triangle? Some believe it's geomagnetic anomalies in the mountain strong enough to interfere with compasses and disorient even experienced hikers. Others suggest serial abductions, though no pattern motive or evidence ever emerged. A few whisper about time slips, rifts in space and time that briefly open and swallow the unlucky. And some point to Bigfoot sightings, the creature long rumored to roam the Vermont forests, leaving behind broken branches, eerie howls, and an unsettling feeling that something is watching. Whatever the cause, locals still speak in hushed tones about Glastonbury Mountain. Many refuse to hike it. Trails fade into nothing. Radios go dead, and phones lose signal completely, even in this modern age. It's not that the mountain is loud with danger. It's quiet. Too quiet. And it's that stillness, deep watching waiting, that makes the Bennington Triangle so deeply unsettling. As you close your eyes, imagine walking through a foggy forest, the leaves crunching beneath your boots, the trees closing in gently, and something just beyond your sightline, always listening. The air is still. The trail bends, and suddenly you're alone. But don't worry, you're safe where you are. This is only a story. Or is it? The Bermuda Triangle. The ocean's most dangerous mystery. We now turn our gaze across the Atlantic to a place both feared and fascinating. A place that sailors whisper about and pilots dread. A place that appears as blue as paradise. And yet beneath its shimmering waters, countless lives have simply vanished. This is the Bermuda Triangle, also known as the Devil's Triangle. Stretching between Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the island of Bermuda. This seemingly peaceful triangle has swallowed planes, ships, and entire crews without a single Mayday call, wreckage, or trace. For over a century, the Bermuda Triangle has been the setting for some of the most chilling disappearances in modern history. One of the most famous incidents took place in 1945. Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers on a routine training mission, took off from Fort Lauderdale under clear skies. Radio transcripts captured confusion among the pilots. "We can't find West. Everything is wrong. The ocean looks strange." The aircraft circled aimlessly until fuel ran out. The Navy sent out a rescue plane with 13 crewmen to search for them. It vanished too. 6 planes, 27 men, gone. No wreckage ever found. In 1918, the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy cargo ship carrying over 300 people, disappeared en route from Barbados to Baltimore. No SOS, no debris, just an eerie silence across the waves. Then came the Star Tiger Star, aerial DC-3 flight NC-502, and the Witchcraft, a small pleasure boat that radioed for help just off Miami's coast, claiming minor trouble. The Coast Guard arrived within 20 minutes, but there was nothing there. No oil slick, no life jackets, no floating debris, as if the sea had simply opened up and taken them. So what causes these vanishing? Some say it's magnetic anomalies, pulling compasses off course. Others suspect violent weather rogue waves or underwater gas eruptions that can sink ships in seconds. A few even point to time warps, dimensional rifts, or advanced underwater civilizations. And then, of course, there are those who blame it on aliens. Aerial photographs have shown strange lights, underwater pyramids, and glowing orbs beneath the waves. Survivors have reported bizarre fogs, missing time, and sudden instrument failure, all while flying in perfect conditions. Even modern technology hasn't solved the riddle. Ships equipped with GPS radar and satellite tracking still go silent when they enter the triangle, never to be heard from again. It's not the violence of the ocean that scares researchers. It's how quietly it takes you. No screams, no flares, no black box, just endless blue, and then nothing. And yet, despite the risks, commercial planes still fly over the triangle daily. Cruise ships still cut across its waters, as if daring fate to reach out and claim one more. They say you shouldn't fear the sea, but in the Bermuda Triangle, it's not the sea you should fear. It's the silence. So if you ever find yourself drifting to sleep on a plane, or dozing off to the sound of waves, take a moment to wonder what lies just beneath the surface. In that mysterious stretch of ocean where logic fades and the world forgets to look. Because some believe the Bermuda Triangle is not just a graveyard of ships and souls, but a gateway, a door, to somewhere else entirely. A rip in the veil of our reality, a threshold into a hidden dimension, or perhaps even a cosmic highway connecting distant corners of the universe. Tonight, let us sink deeper into that possibility. Let the waves carry us not to danger, but to curiosity, to the stories of those who vanished without a trace, and the growing belief that what took them wasn't from this world. Revealing the time-space gate of the Bermuda Triangle. The Florida Peninsula, Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, and the Bermuda Islands form what has long been known as the Bermuda Triangle, a mysterious stretch of ocean that has puzzled humanity for over a century. Countless ships and aircraft have vanished here without explanation. Phantom vessels appear and disappear. Radio signals suddenly go dark. Compasses spin uncontrollably. To this day, this region defies modern logic and leaves even the most advanced minds grasping for answers. Each year, thousands of lives are claimed in this area. And while many strange tales have emerged around the Bermuda Triangle, scholars and researchers around the world have proposed countless theories and assumptions in an attempt to explain them. Yet for those on a spiritual cultivation path, the scientific guesses of modern society are like blind men trying to describe an elephant, unable to perceive the true essence of what lies beneath these mysterious phenomena. From the realm I've seen through my cultivation, the real reason behind the disappearing ships and aircraft in the Bermuda Triangle lies in the presence of time-space portals, invisible gateways that open at unpredictable moments within the spatial field of this region. These time-space gates were formed millions of years ago, during massive planetary collisions with Earth. The tremendous impacts fractured the planet's continental crust, and a series of nuclear-scale explosions tore open severe wounds in our spatial dimension. The energy from these blasts not only damaged our space, but also severely disrupted the delicate atomic structures of other dimensions that correspond to Earth. These disturbances triggered massive shifts in those spaces, resulting in the formation of time-space portals. These portals were never meant to remain open forever. Under normal circumstances, they could have been sealed. However, for reasons not yet suitable to disclose, higher dimensional beings chose not to close them. For millions of years, these beings have guarded the gateways, forbidding entry or exit across dimensions at will. And the strange occurrences we witness today are in fact echoes of profound historical causes and arrangements far beyond human comprehension. But the time-space gates aren't the only secret behind Bermuda's disappearances. Beyond the shifting rifts in space and time, there lies another powerful reason for the mysterious vanishings in the Bermuda Triangle extraterrestrial beings. According to revelations from higher levels of awareness, alien civilizations have inhabited this region since prehistoric times. Deep beneath the dark ocean floor, there exists a vast alien-constructed facility stretching nearly 100 kilometers. These beings are said to have repurposed ancient submerged pyramids, relics of lost civilizations for their own use. These extraterrestrials originate from a distant star system within the Cygnus galaxy. They are highly intelligent life forms, standing around 1.5 meters tall, with pale grayish-white skin, deep black eyes, without visible sclera, and silvery white hair. Their path of technological development is entirely unlike ours. It follows a biological model deeply intertwined with organic systems, nothing like humanity's current mechanical or industrial trajectory. The reason they came to Earth: their home planet was on the verge of destruction, and they sought refuge beneath the oceans of Earth, specifically in the Bermuda Triangle. As strange as it may sound, many of the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle may have been caused by these beings. And here are some of the most compelling cases that hint at their hidden hand. In 1945, 5 American torpedo bombers vanished during a training flight over the Bermuda Triangle. The incident shocked the world. The U.S. military launched a massive search operation involving over 300 aircraft and 4 warships, covering an area of 950,000 square kilometers. They spent more than 400 hours combing the region, but found absolutely nothing. Decades later, in the 1980s, strange new findings emerged. In 1987, Soviet space scientist Dr. Makiev received satellite radar images from a planetary probe. To his astonishment, one of the missing bombers was spotted on the rim of a lunar crater on the Moon. The tail markings matched one of the planes from the infamous Flight 19. However, just as US and Soviet scientists prepared to investigate further, the plane vanished again without a trace. Years later, in 1996, American astronomer Dr. Kalootin used a computer-guided space telescope to observe something even stranger. High above Mars, at an altitude of several thousand meters, he spotted 4 World War II-era bombers flying at speeds of 40,000 kilometers. These 2 were identified as aircraft from Flight 19. So, who was responsible for these disappearances that spanned more than half a century? From what I've seen, it was the extraterrestrial beings from Cygnus, still residing in their hidden oceanic base beneath the Bermuda Triangle, who caused these disappearances. And now I ask you, what do you believe? Do you think it's possible that alien life has not only visited Earth, but stayed? Are the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle simply the shadows of a deeper, far older presence among us? So perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is not a place of death, but of transition, a portal, a veil, a crossing into dimensions we are yet to understand. Maybe those who vanished didn't disappear, but moved beyond what our eyes can see and our instruments can measure. As you drift deeper into sleep tonight, imagine the silent waves gliding over the wrecks of ships long forgotten, the quiet hum of unseen craft hovering just below the surface, and the possibility that somewhere out there, knowledge far beyond our own is watching, waiting. Sleep now, knowing that the ocean keeps its secrets well, and sometimes it lets them whisper to those who listen deeply enough. The Ghost Island of the Caspian Sea. And just as the Bermuda Triangle stirs our imagination with whispers of vanishing ships and impossible doorways into time, our attention drifts to another strange occurrence, this time not in the vastness of the Atlantic, but in the heart of the inland Caspian Sea. It began like a secret whispered by the Earth itself. In early 2023, satellites from NASA quietly recorded the birth of something remarkable in Ireland. Not on any map and not in any plan, but suddenly there, rising from the waters of the Caspian Sea like a phantom. No fanfare, no explanation, just a strange, silent lump of land that hadn't been there before. They called it a ghost island. This fleeting landmass appeared off the coast of Azerbaijan, born from a violent eruption of one of the region's infamous mud volcanoes. For months, scientists watched in fascination as it held its ground, fragile and raw, before eventually succumbing to the wind, the waves, and the pull of gravity. By the end of 2024, it had vanished entirely, as if it had never existed at all. But this was not the first time the sea had played such tricks. Just 25 kilometers from Azerbaijan's eastern shoreline lies Kumani Bank, a notoriously volatile underwater mud volcano, also known as Chijil Deniz. Back in May 1861, it erupted with such force that it created an island 87 meters wide and 3.5 meters high. Yet within a year, that island too had been erased, completely eroded by the sea by early 1862. The 2023 eruption followed a nearly identical pattern. Using NASA's Landsat 8 and 9 satellites, researchers traced the ghost island's entire life cycle, from the moment it surged up from the seabed to the slow and steady dissolution that left barely a trace behind. These events are more than mere curiosities. The Caspian Sea rests atop a highly active tectonic zone, a place where the Arabian Plate collides with the Eurasian Plate, generating enormous underground pressure. This geological stress has made Azerbaijan home to over 300 mud volcanoes, more than anywhere else in the world. And these aren't the gentle kind. Mud volcanoes here have been known to spout flames hundreds of meters high, ejecting gas sludge and rock in sudden violent bursts. Their eruptions can build up entire landmasses within days, only for those landmasses to collapse or wash away just as swiftly. What happened in 2023 is part of a pattern that dates back centuries. A repeating drama of creation and disappearance, eruption and erosion, all played out beneath the surface of a sea that is anything but still. These ghost islands remind us how unstable, how alive our planet really is. One moment there's nothing. The next land rises from the sea like a miracle, and then it's gone. Yet with every island that appears and vanishes, scientists gain a little more insight into the hidden rhythms of Earth. How pressure shifts, how sediment accumulates, how violent beauty can shape the world one moment and leave no trace the next. So tonight, as you drift deeper into sleep, picture that quiet shape rising from the waves. A land born of fire and mud, basking in moonlight, untouched by human feet. And then slowly, softly, fading, just another ghost story written by the Earth. The Pole of Inaccessibility, the loneliest spot on Earth, far beyond the reach of the familiar and the warm beyond. Even where most explorers dare to go lies a place so remote that it's not defined by what surrounds it, but by what doesn't. No towns, no people, no shores, no sounds, but the wind. This is the Pole of Inaccessibility, the most isolated point on the entire continent of Antarctica, and perhaps the loneliest place on Earth. Unlike the South Pole, which has become a scientific hub in recent decades, the Pole of Inaccessibility is a point calculated purely by distance. It is the spot in Antarctica that lies farthest from any coastline. Imagine standing in a place where the nearest edge of the continent is over 1,000 kilometers away in every direction, and all around you is nothing but a frozen silence. The Soviet Union was the first and only country to reach this icy heart of isolation in 1958 as part of an ambitious expedition during the International Geophysical Year. What they found and left behind has since become something of a ghostly landmark, a small abandoned research hut, barely visible under drifting snow, and perched atop it a peculiar relic, the plastic bust of Vladimir Lenin, still staring blankly across the frozen wasteland as if guarding a forgotten threshold. But make no mistake, this is not a place anyone can visit casually. The temperatures here plunge well below 158 degrees. 72 degrees and the altitude of over 3,700 meters adds another layer of hardship. There are no permanent stations, no flight paths, no emergency options. The air is thin, the visibility often poor, and the terrain treacherous, with hidden crevasses beneath deceptively smooth snow. Satellite imagery confirms what explorers feel in their bones. This is true isolation, and yet there is something mesmerizing about this extreme emptiness. The idea that a point so devoid of life, so untouched by noise or movement, can exist at all in our crowded modern world is oddly comforting. Here in the white silence, nothing happens. And perhaps that is the magic. The Pole of Inaccessibility isn't just a geographical curiosity. It's a meditation on distant stillness and the edges of human experience. It reminds us that despite all our maps and machines, there are still places Earth keeps hidden places where solitude reigns absolutely. So as you drift further into rest, picture that empty horizon, the soft wind brushing past the frozen Lenin. No cities, no footsteps, just white and sky and the vast hum of quiet. Sleep in peace tonight, knowing there are still corners of the world untouched by time. Kofuns, Japan. The Royal Tombs. You can never enter hidden behind perfectly manicured moats and lush green mounds. Across the Japanese archipelago lies one of the country's most mysterious legacies, the Kofun Tombs. Shaped like giant keyholes, these ancient burial mounds date back over 1,500 years and are believed to be the final resting places of Japan's early emperors and elite nobility. The most famous of them all is the Daisen Kofun in Sakai City, often attributed to Emperor Nintoku. Spanning nearly 500 meters in length, it's among the largest tombs in the world, even longer than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yet for all its scale and historical significance, it remains shrouded in silence. Why? Because the Imperial Household Agency, the organization that oversees matters related to the Japanese royal family, has strictly forbidden all archaeological excavations within the inner sanctums of these tombs. Not even Japan's top historians are allowed to enter without direct royal permission. And such permissions are granted extremely rarely. Even for Japanese archaeologists, the inner chambers are off limits. Only the surrounding areas can be studied. No one truly knows what artifacts remains or inscriptions lie buried deep within. The imperial household claims this is to preserve the sanctity of the burial sites. Others suspect it's to protect a narrative, one that may rewrite the earliest chapters of Japan's imperial history. In rare instances, Limited investigations have been allowed in peripheral zones always closely monitored. Some findings suggest possible connections to Korea and China, sparking further curiosity and controversy. But the central truth remains sealed both literally and politically. These colossal earthen tombs have become silent sentinels of time, massive, beautiful, and entirely unapproachable. And so we're left to wonder, what truths lie inside? What secrets are so sensitive that even scholars must look away? As you drift further into sleep, let your mind wander across the moats and mossy slopes of the forbidden Kofun tombs, timeless guardians of a history too sacred to disturb. Varosha, Cyprus, the ghost town time froze in 1974. Once a glittering jewel of the Mediterranean, Varosha was the pride of Cyprus in the early 1970s. Perched on the eastern coast near Famagusta, this sun-soaked resort town attracted Hollywood celebrities, international tourists, and dreamers seeking the turquoise warmth of the Aegean sun. Grand hotels lined the beachfront luxury boutiques, buzzed with shoppers, and the future looked golden. But that future never came. In July 1974, political tensions on the island boiled over into full-blown conflict. Following a coup d'etat by pro-Greek forces, Turkey launched a military intervention, citing the need to protect the Turkish Cypriot population. As troops advanced, the residents of Varosha, some 39,000 people, fled their homes overnight, expecting to return in a matter of days. They never did. The Turkish military fenced off the entire district, declaring it a restricted military zone. Homes, cafes, and high-rise hotels were left just as they were, beach towels still draped over balconies, shop windows filled with now faded clothes, even cars left parked in driveways. Over time, nature crept back in. Palm trees burst through cracked pavement, birds nested in abandoned chandeliers, and the sea continued to kiss the deserted shoreline as if nothing had changed. For nearly 5 decades, Varosha has remained sealed off from the public. No Cypriots, Greek or Turkish, have been allowed to return. The entire town sits frozen in time, guarded by armed patrols, watched over by rusting signs warning entry forbidden. It is perhaps the most haunting ghost town in the modern world, a once glamorous destination now held in limbo by geopolitics. In recent years, parts of Varosha have controversially reopened under Turkish control. But the vast majority of the town remains abandoned. Its ownership disputed, its fate uncertain. Former residents still hold keys to homes they cannot enter, memories they cannot reclaim. And as you lie back and close your eyes, tonight, imagine a summer town forever stuck in July 1974, where suitcases remain unpacked, clocks have stopped ticking, and the ocean waves still echo stories no one's been allowed to finish. Sable Island, Canada, the graveyard of the Atlantic. Drifting quietly in the North Atlantic Ocean, Sable Island is a crescent-shaped sliver of land hidden beneath the fog and wind, some 300 kilometers southeast of Nova Scotia. Though only 42 kilometers long and barely 1.3 kilometers wide at its broadest, this mysterious island holds a fearsome reputation and a haunting history. For centuries, Sable Island has been known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. Shrouded in thick mists and surrounded by treacherous sandbars, the island has claimed over 350 shipwrecks. From old wooden schooners to steel-hulled steamers, countless vessels met their end in these shifting sands, often without warning. The sea here seems to whisper warnings too late, and yet amid this danger, life quietly endures. A small population, fewer than 30 researchers, weather station staff, and Parks Canada personnel reside here year-round. They live among sand dunes, wild winds, and one of nature's most improbable treasures, over 500 wild horses. Believed to be descendants of animals brought by settlers in the 1700s. These hardy creatures roam freely, their manes tangled in salt air, untouched by human hands. The island is also home to gray seals, rare plant species, and migratory birds, making it an ecological sanctuary, unlike any other in Canada. Recognizing this, Sable Island was designated as a National Park Reserve in 2013. a move that secured its preservation but also limited human access even further. No one can simply book a trip here. To visit Sable Island, you must submit a written request to the Canadian government explaining the purpose and necessity of your visit. Tourism is tightly controlled. Aircraft and boat landings require special permission, and even then, weather conditions often make arrival uncertain. There are no roads, no permanent docks, and no visitor amenities. The island shifts and reshapes itself with every storm, as if trying to remain hidden. Sable is a place where time stretches slowly, and the winds seem to carry echoes of ships long lost. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, picture an island that's equal parts danger and wonder, a strip of land sculpted by storms, guarded by wild horses, and wrapped in the quiet mystery of the sea. A place so fragile, so untamed, that nature itself decides who may come close and who must stay away. The secret chamber of Mount Rushmore, America's hidden vault of history. Beneath the stony gazes of four of America's most iconic presidents, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln, lies a secret few ever talk about. Mount Rushmore, rising proudly from the granite cliffs of South Dakota, is more than just a monumental sculpture. Hidden within its heart is a sealed room, quietly watching over the nation's most treasured ideals. This hidden space, known simply as the Hall of Records, was conceived by sculptor Gutzon Borglum, the visionary behind Mount Rushmore. He didn't just want to carve faces into the mountain, he wanted to leave a legacy that would outlast time. Deep behind the head of Abraham Lincoln, Borglum dreamed of a secret chamber, a granite-lined vault that would preserve the essence of America for future civilizations. Though construction of the monument began in 1927, the Hall of Records was never completed during Borglum's lifetime. Funding ran out and priorities shifted. But decades later, in 1998, the US government quietly fulfilled part of Borglum's vision. Today, hidden behind a 100-200-pound granite capstone, accessible only through a narrow, steep path high on the mountain, lies a chamber that houses archival documents and titanium vaults. Inside are copies of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and biographies of the presidents carved above. It is not a room meant for visitors. It is a time capsule created for a civilization yet to come, should ours ever vanish. The entrance is sealed. No public tours, no signs pointing the way. The granite door and sophisticated security systems ensure that the Hall of Records remains untouched by tourists, researchers, or curiosity seekers. It exists not for the present, but for the future, a quiet whisper to generations we will never meet. And so as you fall asleep tonight, imagine a silent chamber carved into stone filled with the ideals, dreams, and words of a nation hidden away from the world, patiently waiting in the shadows of giants. The British Telecom Tower, London's shuttered giant. Once a beacon of innovation and elegance, the British Telecom Tower, soaring 620 feet 189 meters into the London sky, once welcomed visitors to its top-floor revolving restaurant and panoramic observation deck. From here, you could gaze across the sprawling cityscape, Big Ben, the Thames, and beyond. But today, those views are sealed away from the public, hidden behind closed doors and heavy security. Constructed in the 1960s during the height of Britain's telecommunications revolution, the tower was originally known as the Post Office Tower. It quickly became both a symbol of progress and a popular tourist destination. Its crowning jewel, a rotating restaurant and viewing platform that offered diners a 360-degree view of London in motion. But in 1971, everything changed. A bomb exploded in the tower's upper floors, believed to be planted by a radical group. Though there were no fatalities, the attack was a chilling reminder of how even symbols of modernity could become targets. Out of caution and secrecy, the restaurant and viewing area were closed indefinitely. In fact, for many years afterward, the British government even refused to officially acknowledge the tower's existence on maps or in public records. To this day, the upper levels remain off-limits to the general public. The tower continues to serve a critical communications function for the UK, transmitting signals for television, radio, and military systems. Its antennas still blink over London's skyline, but the once buzzing floors above are now eerily quiet. Occasionally, the British Telecom Tower opens its doors for rare charity events or select private tours, giving a lucky few the chance to step inside and once again see the capital from its dizzying heights. But for most, it's simply a ghostly monument, a locked tower in the center of the city, filled with echoes of clinking glasses, hushed conversations, and a view that spins no more. So tonight, as London sleeps below a veil of clouds and distant sirens, imagine that quiet room in the sky untouched for decades, watching over the city like a silent sentinel. Kaho'olawe Island, Hawaii, the sacred land scarred by war. Far from the bustling beaches of Maui and the lush rainforests of Kauai, lies Kaho'olawe, an arid, windswept island adrift in the Pacific Ocean. To the untrained eye, it may appear barren, but beneath its dusty soil and crumbling cliffs lies a history both sacred and scarred, a place that has seen both ancient rituals and modern warfare, now sealed off from casual visitors. Once revered by native Hawaiians, Kaho'olawe was known as Kanaloa, the realm of the god of the ocean, and used for celestial navigation training and religious ceremonies. The island was considered so sacred that only priests and select individuals were allowed to set foot upon it, and only under strict spiritual protocols. This sanctity lasted for centuries until war reshaped its destiny. During World War II, the U.S. military took control of Kaho'olawe and transformed it into a bombing range and weapons testing site. For nearly 50 years, the island was pummeled by artillery fire, scorched by napalm, and cracked open by live explosives. Entire portions of its surface were reduced to craters and rubble. Even after the Cold War ended, unexploded ordnance still lay hidden beneath the soil, rendering large parts of the island dangerous and uninhabitable. Public outcry eventually led to the cessation of bombing in 1990. In the years that followed, native Hawaiian organizations pushed for the island's return and restoration. Today, Kaho'olawe is managed by the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission, and its future is rooted in healing not just of the land, but of its cultural soul. Access is strictly controlled. The island remains off-limits to tourists. No hotels, no roads, no shops. The only way to visit Kaho'olawe is through volunteer conservation programs where participants help restore native plants, prevent erosion, and slowly revive the damaged ecosystem. Visitors must undergo training, be prepared for austere conditions, and carry a deep respect for the cultural and spiritual significance of the island. As night falls over the Pacific and waves lap gently against Kaho'olawe's rocky shores, the island sleeps a wounded guardian of sacred memory, waiting patiently for every seed replanted, every prayer whispered, and every footprint made with care. The Hanging Doll House of Hrvatov, Czech Republic, where a child's spirit never left. Tucked away in the foggy hills of eastern Bohemia, the tiny village of Hrvatov hides a house that locals only whisper about. It's not marked on tourist maps. There are no signs, no fences, but once you see it, you never forget it. They call it Doom's Paninkami, the House of Dolls. But it is not a place for children. From afar, the house appears abandoned. Its paint flaked, its windows clouded, its roof slightly slumped like it's bowing under the weight of memory. Yet what chills the bones is what hangs from its eaves, hundreds of dolls dangling by strings, staring blankly at the path below. Their faces are dirty, cracked, some twisted in mid-scream. Their bodies sway gently, even on still days, as if something unseen brushes past them. But these aren't just dolls. They are guardians, or perhaps prisoners. According to local lore, a little girl once lived in this house with her parents. She was known to talk to someone no one else could see. One winter, the girl vanished. Her body was never found. But soon after, the dolls began to appear. First in the windows, then nailed to the trees, then strung up by the dozens as if hung in mourning or warning. Some say the dolls are possessed, each one a vessel containing a fragment of the lost child's spirit. Others claim they are hung to appease her, to keep her from luring others away into the woods. Several villagers report hearing crying at night near the property. One woman said she saw a doll walk down the steps on its own. And then there's the mirror story. Those who dare to enter sometimes find one particular doll dressed in a blue velvet dress that appears to move between rooms, never in the same place twice. The house isn't officially banned, but no one goes in. Even thrill seekers have turned away, because it's not just the dolls, it's the feeling. The air inside is cold, unnaturally so. Phones stop working, watches freeze, and some visitors claim to feel a small hand grab theirs, only to find no one there. They say the girl's spirit still waits, confused, angry, lonely, and won't let go of anyone who reminds her of what she lost. So if you ever find yourself in the forests near Urvachov and the trees grow strangely silent and the path seems to narrow without reason, turn back, because not all haunted houses creak and scream. Some just watch and wait. The Ghost Church of Lukova, Czech Republic, where spirits sit in silence. Some places are so quiet that even the dead seem to stay and listen. Nestled in the remote countryside of the Czech Republic lies the St. George George's Church. In Lukova, an aging chapel with crumbling plaster, a collapsed ceiling, and paint that has long since surrendered to time. But it's not the decay that haunts visitors, it's who's still sitting in the pews. Step inside and you're not alone. Lining the wooden benches are dozens of life-sized figures covered in white robes, their heads bowed as if in eternal prayer. They do not move, they do not speak, but their presence is unmistakable. Some clutch their hands together. Others gaze silently toward the altar, frozen in a ritual long ended. From a distance, they look human, too human. These are not mannequins. They are ghosts carved in plaster and wrapped in time. Created by artist Jakub Hadrava in 2012, these haunting sculptures were meant to honor the church's fading legacy and its former parishioners. But over time, the installation took on a life of its own. Locals began to whisper that the ghosts had returned, drawn back by the art, or perhaps by something deeper that never left. Visitors report feeling watched even when standing alone. Some claim to hear faint murmurs as if a service were still underway. And others have sworn that a figure once turned its head. The church itself has a history steeped in sorrow. Built in the 14th century, it has witnessed wars, plagues, and fires. Its roof collapsed during a funeral in 1968, a tragic omen that led many to believe the building was cursed. It stood abandoned for decades, until the ghosts came home. Today, the Ghost Church is open to the public, but only for the brave. The air inside is heavy, and time seems to slow as you walk the aisle between the statues. Some visitors leave candles, others leave quickly. Because in Lukova, it's not the dead you fear, it's the silence they left behind. So if you find yourself wandering through the Bohemian hills and come across a ruined chapel echoing with stillness, step inside if you dare. But don't be surprised if one of the figures seems to have changed seats, or if you leave feeling like someone followed. And now, as the last whispers of mystery fade into silence, this evening's journey comes to an end. But there are always more secrets waiting in the dark. Wherever you are drifting off to sleep, resting after a long day, or simply letting your mind wander, thank you for traveling with us through these forbidden, forgotten, and fascinating places. If you enjoyed the calm, the wonder, or the hidden truths, consider subscribing so we can meet again on the next quiet journey into the unknown. Sleep well, and dreams take you somewhere just as strange and beautiful.